Okay, greetings, brothers and sisters. So Trump says some things with Netanyahu that are completely effed up, but they're not a surprise. I've dealt with denial. I think the number one issue that I deal with commenters, and I mean, comments are just comments. They're not like they're people leaving comments on my videos, right? It's not really personal. Like it's not, there's people who want to make it personal, whatever it is. It's personal for them, but it's not for me because, much of what I cover here, I do not care about. Like I have no interest in it. I have interest in it in terms of making videos and making jokes about it and these things. But like I don't, if it wasn't for these videos, I would not attend to it at all, right? The Sajmarg system and the meditation that changed my life, transformed me as a person. Not changing life is not, I don't even know what that means. Things change your life, but changing you, that's something much, a much more profound thing. Things that change you for the better. And most things change you for the worse. Things change you, make you more cynical, make you harder, make you, angrier, make you whatever, right? Most things in our material life. You think about all the things that you see in the news and what you've experienced with other people. Somebody screws you over or somebody lets you down or whatever. It makes you, it takes a chunk out of your life force. I mean, most things make you worse. And the Sajmarg system did the exact opposite. Made me, better, softer, more loving, these things, right? Just, And I can't say enough about the system. And when it was hijacked, and I want to say hijacked in the sense that it was legitimately hijacked, like it was something where this guy weaseled his way in to become the next master of the system. I don't know exactly what down with that. And he just wrecked it. He wrecked it in a way like these are business guys. He surrounded himself with a bunch of business guys, all successful, all with money, all with, money power. He himself a rich man, right? And they wrecked something spiritual for no good reason, right? Maybe it was supposed to happen. I believe everything's part of a plan. So, I've accepted that part about it. But he wrecked it, and it was personal to me. It was a real bummer. Not just for me, but for people in the future. Like, the whole, what does this mean for people in the future? Because I believe that this was the gift that was given as a way for people to negotiate their way out of this, navigate their way out of this problem that we all have, which is that human beings suck right now. We've lost our way, and this system solved that problem. Help people find their way back to God in a real way, not some religious BS way that there's false promises and just, not real. But anyways, I've no longer tuned into whatever they do over at Heartfulness. It's been 2 years since I started doing the, Gratefulness meditation and just broke free from the debacle was that organization. And, I know people there. I mean, my social system was there. I knew this guy Kamlish, like we were like, almost what you consider friends or something, friendly, whatever. I knew these people. And, this thing is so important to me. And I just don't look at it. Like I've just, it's dead to me, right? Once in a while, somebody sends me a link to look at or something, or, and I look at it and I'll talk about a little bit in the Journey series. But I don't seek it out, right? Like on a daily basis, I seek out, it used to be celebrity stuff. I don't really do that so much anymore. Once in a while, I look at page 6 every day, but, it takes something really, interesting or something that I feel like I need to cover for me to cover celebrity stuff. And I have almost zero interest in politics other than it's just epic right now. Like it's an epic show. So you can understand where I feel about these things. Like if there's something that's so like dear to my heart as the Sajmarg meditation and it's been hijacked and it's personal and like, all these things. And if I can detach myself from that because it just makes me feel bad and there's nothing I can do about it and it's already, there's so much information you need. In terms of all the things that I cover here, some of the things are things you need to know at least a little bit about. So what are you going to do if it comes down to something that you have to make a decision about? What are you going to do about COVID? The COVID boop. What are you going to do about that, right? What are you going to do when that, and I already knew what I was going to do about that before it even happened. It was a no, right? I knew it was a strong no and it wasn't going away, right? And so, all these things some of them you need to be aware of just because how quickly things can go south. So you have to prepare yourself emotionally and mentally for the collapse, and that's what we're watching. And like, which thing's going to be the straw that broke the camel's back, and then we're going to have huge lifestyle issues. So we need to know some little bits about everything, but we don't need to dive into it and talk about it for 6 months. All the ways that things go around in the truth community. We don't have to get down and find every little dirty little secret, right? And that's what the truth community has become. Each person finding their one little obsession, usually something that brought them in that's upset them, and they can't resolve it. They can't reconcile it. And so, like, there's, just what we need to know about stuff. And then we know what we're going to do when we have to decide on that thing, how it's going to affect us, and what we're going to do about it. And so, when all of that kind of thing, this is where I say I'm a practical person. Like, how does this apply to me in my situation? And, there's no reason for me to get upset about it if it doesn't. And if it does, well, what good is to being upset when now I have to adjust? Now I have to figure out how I'm going to deal with this new reality, right? How is this going to affect my lifestyle, my change in my life, the people in my family, whatever it is? What do I got to do? What's my role now in this thing? And usually it's just talking about it here. And pretty much none of these things affect me, like at the moment. And when they do affect me, I'm, preparing for that separately, the farming and whatever it is, right? And or preparing for my death. So there's all those things, right? But when you are dealing with people's comments and they reflect these things to you and they expose their faulty, issues, their beliefs, their attachments, their desperation, it's a little bit of a bummer. Like to see people so desperate. So many people are desperate because they can't live with the fact that the system should collapse and is probably going to collapse sometime soon. It should collapse because it's a bad system, and it's probably going to be soon, sooner than later. And it's stages, whatever, and the stages are already commenced. And the bargaining, the 5 stages of grief that go with it, all these things, the denial, the bargaining, the anger, all these things. And what people are dealing with, not being able to reconcile what they're seeing in front of them. And so it's a bummer for me to see people just not being able to deal with what's going down because it's, even if you accept it, which is the ultimate in the 5 stages of grief, or be grateful for it, which is the ultimate in a divine process. When you're grateful for even the worst bad things, grateful for your death and things like this, which everyone should be grateful for to one extent or another. When you reach gratitude, that's it. That's the highest level of what you can do. What you can do to gratitude is the ultimate stage. But when you reach gratitude, you still have to change and adapt. You still have to, unless you've done that already, you still have to do that, right? But at some point, you have to change and adapt and deal with it in some way, and not have this false promises of some, bogus piece of shit person like Trump that tells you they're going to save you when they're not, right? The savior complex, right? Being told you're going to be saved is, it's always a lie. No one's ever going to save you from your burden, from your, your reason for being here, for your work that you have to accomplish, the tasks that you have to the obstacles you have to overcome, the tasks you have to complete, all these things. No one can save you, whether it's Jesus or Trump or any number of people. No one's going to save you from what you have to do here. And so there are people who voted for Trump who just, like I said, it doesn't matter what you vote or not. I don't care what people vote or not. It's not up to each person. I mean, I literally don't care. Voting or not voting, whatever. Like, it's like buying a lottery ticket. Like, well, at least there might be a chance Trump will turn it around because we know what we're going to see with Biden, but we knew what we were going to get with Trump anyway. And so people who have some level of hopium with Trump, and, I'll play that in the beginning here, my hopium meme, before I get into this stuff with Israel and Trump. Like, it's so egregious, and I just want to, do this one right. Like, I want this video to go, I want this just to be as meticulous as I can be. I'm not a meticulous person, but I want this one to just be kind of seamless. I mean, it was a big moment yesterday, and Trump unloaded this stuff. And when I show you the first clip and then the whole clip and then, another clip, I want this just to go, in a way that, it has to go. But, I've come up against the Trumpers over the past so many, it's less now. Like Trumpers just have not, disconnected from me, which is great for me. I've come across, this element where people are very angry that you would even, it's like blasphemy. They're accusing me of blasphemy that I get more flack from Trumpers in criticizing Trump than I do from criticizing, and it's not even criticizing, neither one is criticizing. They see it as criticizing, but I see it as truth-telling. My understanding of these things is different. My narratives are different, right? My understanding of Jesus' life and what's happened with the Christian religion and what Donald Trump is different than Christians and Trumpers. And, the stuff with Christianity is a harder thing to hear because no one else is talking about it. There's lots of negativity towards Trump for, good reasons. And, I have said over the years, Trump was my favorite president in terms of a character. In the show, and the character in the show, Trump was by far the best president. The most interesting, the funniest, provoking, the liberal stuff was great. Watching the show, I have enjoyed Trump in his first 4 years until he just crapped out on COVID. And the problem with Trump is he'll always crap out on you. And, it's when a flim-flam man has to deliver, they always fold. When a con man has to deliver, when a grifter has to deliver, that's when they're going to fold. That's when they show their true colors. And Trump showed you his true colors at the end of his presidency and after the election in the last 4 years. And you still wouldn't see it, right? The denial there, the desperation that these Trumpers have, these specific people. And it's so obvious what Trump is, and they're so much in denial that they have to give full-out pushback. They have to push back as hard as they can and it's hard to see. It's hard to experience. It's icky. And today's the day where the rubber meets the road because not that these Trumpers will see Trump for what he is. It's going to take some, epic collapse. But you should now know, like, what Trump said here is a defining moment of his presidency. There's all these things out there that it looks like Trump is doing a good thing. Someone sent me a clip or YouTube recommended, I don't know. Like, somehow I got it. And it's a bunch of protesters, anti-deportation protesters, and some people driving by and playing Vanilla Ice's Ice Ice Baby, for ICE, that, the border police. And, it's just like, you think you're winning? You think you're really winning with this thing? There's whatever you said, right? My wife sent me something about it, and I had something yesterday. You said has all this DEI stuff, and it looks like, oh my God, Trump's really cleaned this up, and Elon Musk, and there's all these hollow victories. Yeah, there's no question the Biden administration was scamming, and Trump can show those scams, and he can show you that he's cleaning that up, but that's just a cover for the fucking bullshit he's doing, right? And it's bad. So let's get into the first clip here because, it is fucked up. Okay, so this is one clip. I have the Fireside chat. I'm going to show you that, and I'm going to come back and watch this whole thing. This video is just going to be about this, and it's so fucked up. I saw something Beatty said that was so fucked up, and then what Trump says here. I listened to a little bit of the Fireside chat, and then, we'll do all of it. I'll play this again when it's in context of the rest of the thing. But I just want to highlight this thing first. This is all this video is going to be about, because this is a moment of truth, right?
I also strongly believe that the Gaza Strip, which has been a symbol of death and destruction for so many decades and so bad for the people anywhere near it, and especially those who live there, and frankly, who's been really very unlucky. It's been very unlucky. It's been
It has nothing to do with that, right? So this is the truth of whatever. Like, as far as this thing exists, if this is a fictional story, if it's a fictional story. But whatever it is, the Palestinian people don't have an army. There was a place called Palestine that, was not like it was what it was called by the British who owned it. So it was owned by Britain, it was one of their colony kind of things. And the part of it was, there was, the ancient part that was considered Israel. It's a part of Israel, and I've showed you the map, and I'll show you the map again. It was part of the larger state of Israel in ancient times, biblically, and they divided it between Israel and Palestine, and Israel got the backing of America and other powers, but mostly America, and was quickly given a military, a navy, an air force, and the Palestinian people didn't get any of those things. And Israel has slowly eroded and occupied what was once Palestine, and they have created what I would consider false flag type groups like Hamas to provoke things so that they can grab more land, which is an old game that we've seen over and over again, where you create controlled opposition and that opposition attacks you, and then you have an excuse to go do military operations. And so that is the problem. Israel's the problem. Israel wants Palestine. Israel wants, the biblical aspect of Israel. And so that's the issue, right? Let me just go to the map here. Okay, so this is what Palestine is now, this area right in here, right? Israel and Palestine. But when they talk about God promising the Jewish people this land, it's part of Syria, it's Iraq, Saudi Arabia, Egypt, and there's, they have all this stuff. They're on the Persian Gulf, they're on the Red Sea, they have the whole eastern border of the Mediterranean Sea, and there's value out here. There's gas and things we'll get into later. There's resources. And this is what Zionists, which is made up of some Jewish people and lots of Christians, many of them George Bush Christians, the neocons, right? And Joe Biden said that he was a Zionist. I'll show you a clip of that. And of course, Trump is even more of one. Trump is like Joe Biden saying, I'm a Zionist, and Trump is much more a Zionist than he is. And RFK Jr. maybe even more than Trump, right? Who believe in the promised land. And so they think God promised them this land, or they believe it, or that's what they're trying to sell. But if they're saying God doesn't promise you shit. God gives you love. God gives you himself. God doesn't promise you riches or, a happy life or any of these things. All you are promised is God's love. That's all. And, that's more than enough. That's all you're promised. In fact, it's not even a promise. It's there all the time. A promise is of something that's going to come. God doesn't promise you heaven. God doesn't promise you any of these things. Those are things for you to work for. Whatever you achieve, right? That's why you have a will force. That's why you have freedom of choice. You have these abilities to achieve things in life, to achieve things in your spiritual life. But you don't achieve, God doesn't give you anything but God's love. And that's there constantly. And people reject it because they want something grosser. They reject God's love for something that's of less, that's worse, right? That's of a lower standard. But this is what the Jewish people, the Zionists, think that this is going to happen. This is what with the original Israel is here. It's part of Turkey, right? It's a big chunk of land that involves 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. There's 7. 8 countries where they would have to take land from those countries, right? And valuable land that's waterfront land. They would be on either side of the Red Sea, right? Every country, the settlements and things are along the ocean, right? People live along oceans. They live along coastlines. They would get all this land on the Mediterranean Sea, on either side of the Red Sea, and up here in the Persian Gulf. They would have all those things, right? All the oil, all the resources, Iraq oil, Saudi Arabian oil, Syria and Lebanon, all these places, right? Parts of Turkey. And so if there is a promised land, this is it. In terms of what people believe. And so that has to be considered as the problem. That they think God has promised them this land, and the Palestinian people are the easiest ones to kick off some of their land that God promised them. That's what's happening. That's the problem. It's the whole problem. And it has nothing to do with anything but Israel and this belief, the Zionist belief in the promised land. Okay, so let's start this over.
I also strongly believe that the Gaza Strip, which has been a symbol of death and destruction for so many decades and so bad for the people anywhere near it, and especially those who live there, and frankly, who's been really very unlucky. It's been very unlucky. It's been an unlucky place for a long time. being in its presence just has not been good, and it should not go through a process of rebuilding and occupation by the same people that have really stood there and fought for it and lived there and died there and lived a miserable existence there. Instead, we should go to other countries of interest with humanitarian hearts, and there are many of them that want to do this, and build various domains that will ultimately be occupied by the 1.8 million Palestinians living in Gaza, ending the death and destruction and, frankly, bad luck.
So look, he didn't probably know this was coming because, it's Trump. So this is the first fucked up thing. So these people who were granted half of what, is now considered, Palestinian isn't a recognized state. It's kind of, they've moved towards that, the UN, right? But, the Rothschild family went to the UN and said, we need to give Israel, the Rothschild family is from Jewish origin, but they're something else, right? We have to create a state of Israel. And so they took half of Palestine, and Britain, owned Palestine, and they gave it to the Jewish people. That was far less population. And the Jewish people immediately started to encroach on the Palestinian people and have harassed them. There's a comedian who, when this first happened, I showed you the difference in the military power of the two countries. The Palestinians have no military power. They have nothing. They have no air force, no army, no navy, no any of these things. No special forces, nothing. So every Israeli citizen has to spend time in the IDF, the Israeli Defense Force, and the defense is a lie because it's an aggressive force, right? And they're going in, they encroach on these people. And years ago, I was watching this comedian, and he said, why aren't there more major league pitchers, or why aren't there any major league pitchers from Palestine? Because all they were doing is throwing rocks. So you have Israel, who was a state-of-the-art military operation, one of the 20 best armies, and only because of the small nature of their country, but it's in the top 20 of armies, militaries, and it has the backing of the United States, and it has all the high-tech equipment. And you have the other side that's throwing fucking rocks like they're cave people, right? They throw rocks because they don't have an army, right? And so Trump's solution to this, all the things that we've seen, and nobody said anything fucking like this, right? Like, this is radical as it could be. He wants to take 2 million Israeli people, Palestinian people, in Gaza and dump them in some other settlements in other countries. That he's going to work with other countries in that region to build settlements and take the people. Look, he just looked like it's Christmas fucking morning here, right? Or Hanukkah morning, or where the fuck it is for him, right? It's like he's just been given this gift. He has no idea. Trump's reading this thing, unless they gave this thing to him to read. But it sounds like some fucked up shit that Trump has concocted, that he wants to take these 2 million people and dump them in other countries because that's what they're suffering, and he wants to relieve their suffering. This is their fucking home, right? This is their homeland. And he wants to take all these people and just dump them in another country. And, Gaza Strip, there's natural gas and oil in the ocean right offside of Palestine, the Gaza Strip. So there's natural resources there. They would be really wealthy, but Israel won't let them develop it because they want that shit for themselves. And Israel would get all that shit and develop it. Trump knows about that, all the natural resources there, which will further bolster Israel's military capabilities once they have these resources on top of everything else. And so this is so fucked up. This is the first fucked up thing. So there's part one. Part one is, let's listen to it again here.
Existence there. Instead, we should go to other countries of interest with humanitarian hearts, and there are many of them that want to do this, and build various domains that will ultimately be occupied by the 1.8 million Palestinians living in Gaza, ending the death and destruction and, frankly, bad luck.
Bad luck. It's bad luck. It's just Trump is going to change their luck. Look at him.
This can be paid for by neighboring countries of great wealth. It could be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 7, 8, 12. It could be numerous sites, or it could be one large site. But the people will be able to live in comfort and peace.
One large site. So what he's talking about is basically concentration camps or some kind of, these countries who want refugees. Tell me one country that wants poor refugees, 1.8 million. So Trump is closing our border. Trump is trying to close our border. That's his claim to fame. He wants illegal immigrants to leave our, not to come across our border. Which, there was a comedian, I think it was Paul Provenza, and he was saying that Guatemala is Mexico's Mexico. Like what Mexico is to the United States, Guatemala is to Mexico. There's poor countries, like poor people in Guatemala are going into Mexico. And every country has some poor neighbor that, or some war-torn country near them where immigrants are fleeing into that country. And if you need a labor force, you're happy with it. One time America needed laborers, and America was a melting pot of all poor people from around the world who wanted to come to America because we wanted to populate the shit out of this country and process all the resources that were available. But now we don't want that, right? And Trump and all these people, the Tucker Carlsons and the talk about the border, all these, politicians, this whole narrative, the Fox News people, the border, the border, the border. And he wants to dump 1.8 million people in some of these other countries because they don't exist as like sovereign people with their own governments. Like America says, fuck you, take these people. Well, I want to get rid of them. We got to get rid of them because there's so much bad luck here in Palestine and natural resources. Let's take all of the people, all the Palestinian people, and dump them in some of these other countries because these other countries are just there to serve America and Israel. Like, it's like really fucked up. Like the narcissism, when the Democrats said he would be a dictator on day one, they were right about that shit. This is dictator shit. Like this is not any kind of American policy. This is not what America believes. I'm glad he's stating it like this because there's people who've wanted this, the Zionists in America, the neocons, all these people, and Trump's just coming out and stating it, so you give them some credit for not hiding what they want to have happen. But I told you this was going to happen, that Trump was going to give Israel green light, but I never thought it would be like this, what he's saying here.
And we'll make sure something really spectacular is done. They're going to have peace. They're not going to
spectacular.
Be shot at and killed and destroyed like
by Israeli army.
Civilization of wonderful people has had to endure. The only reason the Palestinians want to go back to Gaza is they have no alternative. It's right now a demolition site. This is just a demolition site. Virtually every building is down.
Yeah, because Israel dropped fucking bunker busters on it. I mean, it's a demolition site. It's not bad luck. It's what Israel did in a dick move because they think that this is their land, right? So, like, it's unbelievable, like, how much this guy's a piece of shit. Like, it's just shocking.
They're living under fallen concrete that's very dangerous and very precarious. They instead can occupy all of a beautiful area with homes and safety, and they can live out their lives in peace and harmony instead of having to go back and do it again. The U.S. will take over the Gaza Strip.
Holy shit. You hear what he just said? Say that again here.
Go back and do it again. The U.S. will take over the Gaza Strip, and we will do a job with it too. We'll own it and be responsible for dismantling all of the dangerous unexploded bombs and other weapons on the site.
Okay, who voted for that? Who voted? Where did Trump say that was what his policy towards Israel and Palestine was to take all the Palestinian peoples and move them out? Which, as much as liberals were turning on Joe Biden, if they heard that shit, right, all these liberals who were right, the liberals were right on this issue, that the Palestinian people, were being occupied and not being occupied. It was, genocide, right? I mean, things that were happening there. 20,000 children dead, all at the hands of the IDF and the bullshit thing that went on there, whatever it was. We'll get back into that when they do the fireside chat. We'll come back to all this and watch this again later on. But who signed up for owning Israel, owning Gaza Strip? And, the Halliburton companies, like the rebuilding companies that milk the American people of billions of dollars, where we're going to be responsible to. Let's listen to that again. We're going to hear it again later, too. So,
The Strip, and we will do a job with it, too. We'll own it and be responsible for dismantling all of the dangerous unexploded bombs and other weapons on the site, level the site and get rid of the destroyed buildings, level it out, create an economic development that will supply unlimited numbers of jobs and housing for the people of the area.
well, you just said that you were going to move them to other countries. And so now you're saying you're going to redevelop Palestine or the Gaza Strip. So where are these people going to be when you do all that shit? You said that they were going to go to some other country, or at least that's what was implied. But now you're saying you're going to redo the Gaza Strip so that you can hand it back over to Israel, right? We'll go back and watch this whole thing. But that's so fucked up. And if you are a Trumper, he just exposed what a piece of shit he is. Because that's not America. That's not American policy. We don't outward say that we're going to colonize a country. Why are we involved? We don't have a military presence there, right? We're going to go over there and take it over. He's going to ship American troops out there to take over the Gaza Strip and then rebuild it and, go through all these companies that milk the American people to rebuild countries. Like this has happened over and over again. We blow the shit out of a country. We destroy a country. We blow it up. And then we pay to rebuild it. The American taxpayers. Like, who the fuck said you could do that, right? That's not what America stands for. It's nothing to America. We're not owning. We're going to own the Gaza Strip? What the fuck are you talking about? We're going to own it? Like, nobody voted for that. And nobody wants to hear that shit. And this is what Israel wants, is to move the Palestinian people out and make this into Israel. What is it going to be? Is this going to be another state? Is this going to be an American territory? Or are you going to hand it back to Israel and they're going to own this area and all the resources and you're going to help develop the resources and get your fucking kickback and the Palestinian people are shit out of luck and they're going to live in some sort of projects in Saudi Arabia or some other place, or they're going to be laborers or whatever the fuck you're going to do with them, right? And, whatever this is, it's so fucked. Because those of you who think this is your savior, those people who still watch my videos, all the Trumpers who think this guy is a fucking, the next incarnation of Jesus or whatever the fuck they think about this guy, right? That Trump's your hero, your savior. He's got a master. And his master is fucking Israel. Like, his handlers are Israel. Like, more than any other country. It's financial, it's Wall Street, it's all these other economic institutions, and it's Israel. These are Trump's owners. Like, you guys who are bowing before Trump, this is who Trump bows before. Look at this turd here with his beanie, with his yarmulke. Go here, bow before this, get on your knees and blow the wall. This is he's saluting his master, right? This is who owns Trump, the Zionist stuff, right? So this is, all these Trumpers, all you Trumpers who think that Trump is your savior, that he's your God, he's going to save America, all these things, you bow before your master, and this is the master he bows before. This is who he serves. Like you see in those puts his prayer in there, whatever the fuck he's doing, right? You see this, he's not a religious person. And you see, like you're watching one of those movies, like some knight in shiny armor movie or one of those kind of things. Who do you serve, right? Who do you serve? What Lord do you serve? Whatever it is. This is who Trump serves. This is his handlers. And he just exposed himself, which he's done before. Beatty said there's been no better president for Israel than Trump. And Trump has just handed Israel everything that they wanted. I don't even know if they know, like, what he just said, because it's not very clear. But he's going to turn Palestine into something else. and it's not going to be Palestine anymore. It's not a two-part. It's not a two-state solution. It's a American owning Palestine for some period of time, rebuilding it, and handing it over to Israel, all at the American taxpayer expense. Right? Like these other countries aren't going to pay for it. America's going to pay to clean up the mess that Israel just did, get rid of the Palestinian people, occupy a country that nobody wants us to occupy, and then rebuild it and hand it back over to Israel. And so this guy's supposed to be American president. You guys want more money to go to Israel? Like they're not getting enough from America, right? I mean, Jesus Christ. Look at this piece of shit. Staring at the wall. Look at me. Trump. Fucking Trump. He's a worthless piece of shit. He just exposed everything that the worst of what people believe about the guy. This is dictatorship. There's no, we don't have a right to go over there. I mean, the United Nations, all this shit. Just go over there. We own Palestine now because I fucking said it. We own Greenland. We own the Panama Canal, changing the name of Gulf of Mexico, and now we own Gaza Strip. We just own it. We own it because I said so. I got right here on this paper. I'm ruler of the fucking world, and all you motherfuckers adapt to what I just said, right? That's a dictator on day one. I mean, I can't imagine this thing will go through. But just putting out these fucking ideas, this isn't just talking off the cuff at an airport or something where he's giving some speech. He had this handwritten. He's reading this thing, and he's sitting there with Beatty. It's what is it? A month into his presidency, a couple weeks into his presidency, and he's bringing this guy, the president or the prime minister of Israel over, and he's saying, "Yeah, America now owns Palestine." I just said it. This is my proclamation, and we got to start. What does that mean, right? In terms of bringing a military presence in, so that means a mobilization of, thousands of American troops that have to go and get rid of all the bombs and the destruction. Did the American parents of these soldiers that are going to go over there and be in harm's way and be in this powder keg and be in this place, and then to do all this work and American taxpayers are going to pay for, it's totally fucked. And anybody who's a Trumper, you won't do it because you're so desperate. This should be like your wake-up moment. This guy's a worthless piece of shit, and he's fucking radical and crazy. Like, he's fucked and crazy.
I'm a Zionist. And so I learned a long time ago, you don't have to be a Jew to be a Zionist. I'm a Zionist.
So this piece of shit, right? I mean, this is, all these people, all these politicians are owned by Israel. Israel has one of the strongest lobbying groups. All these people have to sign off a piece of paper saying that they're going to protect Israel. That Israel is like, somehow a part of the United States, and that these politicians all have to pledge. They have to sign a fucking pledge that they're going to be there for Israel. And if not, the Zionist lobbyists they'll take away their political seat. We'll go against them. They all have to bow before Israel. But nobody bows before Israel like Trump. I mean, what he just said, RFK Jr. said similar things, but I don't think he even said this fucked up stuff that Trump said. So, this is it. This is Trump exposing himself as not a fucking president. Like, this is not what a president can do. A president doesn't have the power to say, we own Gaza, right? You're supposed to go through Congress where we're going to declare war on the Palestinian people. What are you going to do? How do you have a right to go over there? You're not peacekeepers. Like, we have a military. Our military's there to defend America. We have no business going to Palestine. He's saying that we're going to go over there. We're going to own Palestine. Like, it's the most fucked up thing ever. Like, he's so fucking clueless. I mean, he's only a couple weeks in. And the political ramifications, and I don't even know what people are saying about this because they're all owned by, Israel in one extent or another, the media and other politicians. But it's like the most fucked up thing a president has ever said ever, right? I mean, other than some, dementia-ridden thing that Joe Biden said. But this is American policy that he just made up where he says we own, like we're going to go in there and we're going to mobilize an army and put them into this area I don't know, like if Beatty is telling him to say this, or this is like something that's just coming onto him, like it's news to him. But Jesus fucking Christ. Okay, so this is the Fireside chat. We'll get into this first.
Thank you very much.
Mr. President, do you expect phase 2 of the hostage deal to go forward?
Let me talk to you later.
Mr. President, you managed to get this deal done. A lot of people say that the men who managed to do that should get a Nobel Peace Prize. Do you think that you'll be able to get all the hostages back home? And what would happen if you hear from the Israeli
They
side?
will never give me a Nobel Peace Prize.
What would happen? What would happen?
Just pour me and my water sign that I'm dropping here.
I deserve it, but they will never give it to me.
What would happen, sir?
I deserve it, but they never give it to me.
Sir, what would happen to go forward?
You know, like just an arrogant prick. And, you know, I've liked that about Trump because he is the way that he is outwardly the way these people are inwardly, right? This is what they think about. Who gives a shit about Nobel Peace Prize? You've just told everyone that America owns Palestine or Gaza Strip. You know, like.
What needs to happen for normalization in Saudi Arabia?
Well, we're going to see, and we're dealing with a lot of people, and we have steps to go yet, as you know, and maybe those steps go forward, and maybe they don't. We're dealing with a very complex group of people, situation, and
Yeah, that have all their own interests, right? See, what you're looking at here, well, I'll go come back to that.
people. But we have the right man, we have the right leader of Israel. He's done a great job. And
Until, like, he said Biden was the president and you said he stabbed you in the back, right? You know, like this, well, let's go back to that. Okay, so I couldn't find the clip, and really it's not that important. You guys remember. Trump, this guy said Trump was the best friend Israel ever had. But when he said Biden won the presidency, fucking Trump turned on him, because Trump does.
we've been friends for a long time. We do a great job also. And I think we have a combination that's very unbeatable, actually.
Can I ask?
Red and blue.
What would happen, Mr. President? What would happen, Mr. President? What would happen if you hear?
Wait a minute. Wait. Where is that person? Where's that person coming from? Come on, go. You go.
Look at this. Is that JFK bust? Look at this fucking ghoul here.
What would happen if you'll hear from the Israeli side today that they're not willing to go through with the deal to get all the hostages back home and finish the war?
We'll see what happens. Whatever happens, we'll be prepared to handle the situation.
Are the Saudis demanding a Palestinian
deal,
state?
Mr. President.
No.
Are the Saudis demanding a Palestinian state?
No, they're not. No.
Are they demanding a path towards a Palestinian state or any other recognition
Everybody's
of that
demanding one thing. You know what it is? Peace. We want peace. We want people to stop being killed. But everybody's demanding one thing.
You mean you want the Israelis to stop killing Palestinians? Is that what you mean, Trump? You want the Israelis to stop murdering children over there and families and the whole thing?
Very simple, peace. And he wants peace also.
He does. He wants peace. And he wants Gaza Strip. And so do I.
I think it's politically possible in Israel to get this deal done until the end.
To get the deal done?
Yeah.
Sure. Why wouldn't a deal get done? A deal can get done. We'll see what happens. We're dealing with very complicated people. But a deal can absolutely get done.
Israeli strike on Iran.
We'll see what happens.
President Trump, I work for Prime Minister Netanyahu. We have heard Joe Biden and Donald Trump take credit for the hostage and ceasefire deal. Who do you think deserves more credit?
I think President Trump added great force and powerful leadership to this effort. I appreciate
Look at how happy he is. Look at how happy this motherfucker is right here.
it. He sent a very good emissary. He's helped it along. And, I'll just tell you, I'm happy that they're here. And I'm sure the president is happy that they're here. And I would think that's about enough.
President Trump,
What about Elizabeth Shukov, the Israeli hostage held in Iraq?
What about the Israeli press taking a press conference in Israel and not in Washington?
we would love to take a press conference to get it to the Prime Minister before we have President Trump.
That's He's wearing some fucking ribbon here.
Human
Look
question.
at this smug fuck. Look at how happy he is.
Netanyahu, do you support going forward with this deal and getting all the hostages out?
I support getting all the hostages out and meeting all our war goals. That
All our war goals.
includes destroying Hamas's military and governing capabilities and making sure that Gaza never poses a threat to Israel again.
Are you willing?
All three.
Are you willing
And
to
those
agree? Are you
things
willing
can
to
go
agree?
together?
Are you willing
Can
to
you
agree
promise
with
to the
Trump's
families
vision
that you
to
do
bring all the
everything to get the hostages out?
I think
wait.
that I should
One at a
talk to
time.
President
One at a
Trump.
time. So
Okay.
I'll ask: do you agree with Trump's vision of getting all the hostages back home, even if it means to end the war?
Well, I'm not sure that you articulate correctly what the president's vision is. You can ask. He can speak for himself. He does that very, very well. I have my own views. 3 goals.
3 goals right here. 3 goals. Fucking destroy Palestine, turn it into Israel, and then use all the resources to get the rest of the promised lands back. And then, well, there'll be more goals.
Not 1, not 2, 3 goals, and I will meet all 3 goals. I think the president can help enormously. He brings fresh thinking.
Any address to the
Fresh
fact
thinking.
that terrorists who murdered hundreds of people who listed their own as the part of the deal?
It's a horrible thing. We can't forget it. I'll never forget it, and you can't forget it. And some people want to put it out of their memory, but we're not going to ever let that happen.
We're never gonna forget it.
It was a horrible day, October 7th. That was a horrible period of time.
October 7th was a horrible period of time. You know, it was a day. And what about the 20,000 Palestinian children that are murdered? But it's not just the deaths. You know, it's the people who are suffering because of all this. And this is Israel. This is what Israel wants. The Palestinian people didn't want this, right? So if Hamas is an independent agent, they didn't hurt Israel. Israel has not been hurt. There's whatever happened October 7th. There's that, right? But the goals, like you can say, all right, no country wants their people to die, but that isn't true. Countries put their own people in harm's way all the time. And sometimes it's great for a country when people die, especially if that country wants to go to war. So the big event that happened in 2001, you could say, oh, that was a horrible day for Americans, but not for the Zionists and not for the neocons and not for the people who had an agenda to go invade all these countries. You know, they had this on the table before it happened. They wanted to go in and invade all these countries. They want to take over Iran. They want to go to war with Iran. They want all these things. And so if American people have to die to make their goals come true, you know, make their goals possible, then American people have to die. So the state of Israel, having some of its citizens die so that they can go annex Palestine, which they've been wanting to do forever, right? They don't want a 2-state solution. They want Palestine as a part of Israel. And so if some people have to die because of it, you know, yeah, the Jewish people, they're upset, American people, Jewish people in America, Americans, you know, the innocent people had to die. But they don't care about killing Palestinians, right, the kids and these things, because they have a goal. And whatever stands in their way, it's what happened with the Native Americans, it's what happened with slavery. It happens in every invading country. You know, if you want to go to war, if you want somebody else's land, you need a reason, right? Remember the Princess Bride, the prince was going to murder the Princess Bride and leave her on the steps of Gildor because they wanted to go to war with Gildor. Remember that, you know, from that movie? It's a false flag, right? And so, you know, this silly stuff that Trump's saying here, right? Let's go back just a bit. I'm sure that this happened first because they're not asking Trump about all the shit he said, right? About annexing, about Americans owning the Gaza Strip. Either they didn't hear it or this thing is happening first.
And some people want to put it out of their memory, but we're not going to ever let that happen. It was a horrible day, October 7th. That was a horrible period of time. And
which guy has smaller hands?
a lot of people like to pretend it didn't happen. It happened. It's a big group of people that like to pretend. it didn't happen. Like
There's no one pretending it didn't happen. Everyone acknowledges what you're doing is pretending that the IDF didn't just murder 20,000 Israeli children or Palestinian children. Like you're saying that what they did is justified, and that didn't happen. That's okay. That's not murder. It's murder. You can call it whatever you want. There was a goal of Israel to do that anyway. They've been doing it for years. They've been occupying and encroaching and taking and settling Palestinian lands in the Gaza Strip and other areas.
The Holocaust didn't happen. Same mindset. And now we're going
But you're saying that the Palestinian people being, I mean, you've said how unlucky the Palestinian people are, right?
we're going to get this thing wrapped up, and we're going to get it done. We're also dealing, I think, very successfully with Russia, Ukraine. We're going to hopefully get that one done at some point in the not too distant future. That's a complex problem also, but we solve problems.
Are you going to treat the Ukrainians the same way you're going to treat Palestinians? Are you going to go and say American owns the Ukraine and that we're going to occupy it and that you're going to rebuild it and then we're going to be there? Are you going to do that? Is that what you're going to do everywhere?
You know, when I left, we had no problem. There was no Ukraine and Russia fighting. There was no October 7th. There was nothing. And some very poor leadership led to a lot of problems and a lot of death. And it's a shame, but we'll put it out. We'll put out the fires. We have a lot of fires, but we'll put them out.
Mr. President, why do you still support a Palestinian state like the peace plan you presented in January 2020? Is this plan still on the table?
Well, a lot of plans change with time, and a lot of death has occurred since I left and now came back. This death occurred not while I was here, but while somebody else was here.
Who was there? Who was there when did her? Who was that person?
Shouldn't have happened. They shouldn't have allowed it to happen. It would have never happened, and that includes Russia, Ukraine would have never happened. Not even a little bit. Not even a.
I believe that wouldn't have happened because, Trump wasn't on. That was a manufactured thing by Biden. But the stuff that happened with Israel and Palestine was completely orchestrated by Israel. Israel's ultimately going to win this thing. If a country has a stated goal. I mean, you guys all know this. I don't know why I'm saying it, but, I don't know, some hardcore Trumpers or whatever. If you have a stated goal to occupy a country, to take that country, the Zionists, the idea that this is Israel's promised land, and your goal is to take all these parts of your promised land back, and something makes that happen, then you've orchestrated or at least taken advantage of that thing, right? You understand this? Like they wanted that thing to happen because this is what Israel has wanted all along. This is what Bibi has wanted all along in terms of the occupation of the Palestinian people and taking that land and just annexing it and turning Gaza Strip into Israel.
Chance. But now we are faced with a situation that's different, in some ways better and in some ways worse. But we're faced with a very complex and difficult situation, but we'll solve the problem.
Refugees get from Gaza, out of Gaza. If not Jordan, Egypt, what other countries you think might accept Palestinians from Gaza?
Well, I think Jordan and Egypt will. I know they've spoken about it with you, and they say they're not going to accept. I say they will. But I think other countries will accept also. I think that Gaza maybe is a demolition site right now. If you look at Gaza, there's hardly a building standing, and the ones that are going to collapse. You can't live in Gaza right now, and I think we need.
Are you making that decision for them, right? So he must have the press conference first.
Another location. I think it should be a location that's going to make people happy. You look over the decades, it's all death in Gaza. This has been happening for years. It's all death.
It's because Israel is killing fucking Palestinians. You don't punish the people who are being killed, right? Like if a bunch of Mexican people or people from the southern border, illegal immigrants came in and started killing Americans, you don't say, oh my God, there's so many deaths over here. Let's move all the Americans out and give the land to the people of that. It's the opposite of what you're saying, right? Like this is what Israel's invading Palestine and they're killing Palestinian people. And now you're saying, well, let's move the Palestinians out. It's just bad luck. They just happen to be where these Israelis are dropping bombs. It's just bad luck over there. Like, it's so fucked up. Like, this guy's a piece of shit. And if he'll do that to them, he'll do it to you. Like, people don't mean anything to him. He has no sense of humanity. What did I praise about Trump in his first administration? He didn't continue these bullshit wars. Trump didn't do the bullshit wars that we got from Bush and Obama and all these, all these neocons and all this stuff that was happening. In fact, he came in talking a big game about dropping nuclear weapons and the military parade North Korea-style military parade he wanted to have as inauguration in 2016. But he didn't do any of these bullshit wars. Like, he didn't do, he didn't drone kids, and he didn't do these things. What he did was minimal casualties. But then, this is a complete reversal of that. And so I praised him for doing what he did last time. But now he's abandoned all sense of reason and fairness and, just honesty here. And what he's saying about the Palestinian people is, it's horrible. Like, this is horrific. These two fucking guys right here with their tiny little hands in the fucking fireplace.
If we can get a beautiful area to resettle people permanently in nice homes and where they can be happy and not be shot, not be killed, not be knifed to death like what's happening in Gaza.
Knifed to death? They're dropping fucking big-ass bombs. They're not being knifed to death.
And right now you have in Gaza a very dangerous situation in terms of explosives all over the place, in terms of tunnels that nobody knows who's in the tunnel. The whole thing is a mess. And I think that if we can resettle, and I believe we can do it in areas where the leaders currently say no. I've been saying that with Mexico.
Okay, so he is saying, we're going to take these people and dump them in your country. That's Trump's solution to all this stuff, right? Take people that he doesn't want here in America or he doesn't want there in Gaza and force some other country or make some deal with some country to take those people. And that those countries now have to build settlements. Think about it. Like, if somebody was forcing America to build settlements for all these illegal immigrants, how Trump would feel about that. Oh, you guys have to pay for it, but you guys go build them settlements. And those settlements, you think they would be good places? These people there, the people in Gaza, what about all the people who are so-called in Hamas? Those are your terrorists and your rapists and your drug dealers that you talk about in these other countries that are pouring through our southern border. And you're going to dump them in somebody else's country? What? Like, they're going to just accept these? It's just silly, right?
Having to do with the border and all of the things, and you saw what happened, 10,000 soldiers, and they're going to do a good job. I really believe that, and I believe Canada's going to do a good job also. They said the same thing, and then they did something much different than what you were hearing. This is a very, very difficult situation, but we're going to get it solved. I don't think people should be going back to Gaza. I think that Gaza has been very unlucky for them.
What the fuck are you talking about? Unlucky. This was all politically, these were decisions made by powerful people, powerful men, from the UN to the Rothschilds to, the United States backing Israel to Israel, and all these people that have destroyed the Palestinian lands and occupied Gaza and destroyed the Palestinian people. Like, this is a genocide. It's not bad fucking luck. What are you talking about, you piece of shit? Like, this is your guy. This is your guy bowing before sucking, Israel's dong, right? Like, this is his bow down, Trump.
They've lived like hell. They lived like you're living in hell. Gaza is not a place for people to be living. And the only
people shouldn't live there. It's just bad luck. It's a bad luck place. But we're going to take it. We're going to take this bad luck place, America. We're just going to grab it and, we know it's bad luck, but we're going to go in there. We'll get rid of the bad luck. We'll put horseshoes up all over the place. We'll put the horseshoes up and other things. We'll do like our little leprechaun dance, and it'll all be better.
The reason they want to go back, and I believe this strongly, is because they have no alternative. What's the alternative? Go where? There's no other alternative. If they had an alternative, they'd much rather not go back to Gaza and live in a beautiful alternative that's safe.
Look at him. Look at the fucking guy right here. Like he is. I mean, this is never would a president have said what he just said. Never would he have said, we're taking the Palestinian people out of Gaza and dumping them in some other country. Look at how happy he is. Look at look at this fucking little puppet. Bow down, you little fucking puppet. Right? You little handled little piece of shit.
Peter?
Would Palestinians have the right to return to Gaza if they left while the rebuilding was happening?
It would be my hope that we could do something really nice, really good, where they wouldn't want to return. Why would they want to return? The place has been hell. It's been one of the meanest.
It's their home. Can you believe this motherfucker, right? Like this is, I mean, it's Hanukkah morning for this guy right here. 8 days of Hanukkah all in one day. This is fucking Santa Claus or whatever, mention on the shelf or whatever.
Toughest places on earth. And right now, I've seen every picture from every angle.
He's seen every picture from every angle. He's gone through every single fucking picture of the Gaza Strip. That's how thorough this motherfucker is. He hasn't been there. He doesn't know the politics. He isn't, attributing any sort of responsibility and blame to Israel and their military. He's seen pictures, and he knows it's fucking bad luck. He knows that it's bad because he's seen every picture from every angle, not just one angle, but every fucking angle. And he's seen what it's like there, and he just decided these motherfuckers don't want to live there. They shouldn't live there because, why would they want to live there? They're going to build some great establishment, some great real estate development out in Saudi Arabia or some fucking place, Egypt or wherever the fuck they dump these people. It's going to be amazing. They're going to take these people who are in abject poverty and put them in why don't we just bring them to America? Why don't you bring 2 million people to America and dump them in one of these, these places out there in Arizona that, when they were big when the housing market came, all these places with these empty homes that exist because of the housing market collapse. Why don't you just take them to America and put them in some great place so that they'll never want to return to Gaza? Like, why don't you bring them here, Trump? Like, why don't you, instead of dumping them on some other country, build some wonderful real estate development? Use your Trump, use your Trump company to do it.
Better than if I were there, and nobody can live there. You can't live there. So if we can build...
Nobody can live there. Nobody can live. You can't live there. You can't live it. Nobody can live there. Look, Israel bombed the shit out of it. There's all these explosives. There's tunnels everywhere. Jesus Christ, they have giant fucking rats the size of fucking crocodiles down there now. And, I mean, they're in the tunnels, and nobody can live there. Okay, so I took a little break, and I brought my dogs out for a walk. It's going to be freezing rain out there, and I talked to my wife for a little bit. And, I was describing this thing. I sent her a video yesterday, and she had heard about this as well. And I said, it's like Trump is going to put a Trump Tower in Gaza. It's like some real estate development. But I just want to emphasize this before we move forward. I've said this over and over about Trump. He doesn't care about little people. He doesn't care about anybody. He'll stab his friends in the back. Everybody's just there to serve him. He doesn't serve other people, right? He doesn't want to, maybe he likes making people happy to one extent or another. Only in a way that a narcissist does. Like, these politicians have all these publicists and all these people to handcraft their messages and handcraft their persona so they don't expose how narcissistic and selfish and what an asshole, the person is, right? And so the thing I've liked about Trump is he doesn't hide that he's a demon, right? Like he lies about it, but the lies are transparent. Where these other people try to handcraft their whole persona, he just is himself. And they're all like this. Their internal worlds are like this, right? They do not care about human life. There's no sense of remorse, no sense of responsibility. Like a good person, a person who cares about other people, a person who has empathy, a person who has compassion, a person that has a active relationship with their heart, you wouldn't be able to sleep. You wouldn't be able to do this job. Like, it's just so cold-blooded. The shit that needs to be done to keep this fucked up system going is so evil. Like, most people just couldn't even imagine doing it because you're constantly making and having to make, like, there's no choice, evil decisions to do evil shit, right? It's just that simple. And Trump seems to love it. Like, he embraces it. And because he just doesn't care about humanity. And so you could say, well, he cares about me because I'm a supporter. You might think about that yourself, but like his fixer, his lawyer was a fixer, a loyal soldier for him, threw him under the bus. He threw Steve Bannon under the bus. He threw Netanyahu under the bus, right? When Netanyahu dared to acknowledge Joe Biden as a legitimate president. Even though Netanyahu loved Trump, he has to deal with the president. He'll throw anybody under a bus. He'll cut ties. He'll do these things. If you dare to go against Trump's, his shit, like his persona, like his greatness. If you say anything, you criticize him in even the slightest way, he'll turn on you. I mean, Chris Christie's story about COVID. Like, he'll use you, and if you don't go along with him using you, he expects you to fall on your sword for him. He has this, like, he's some sort of a king, and he's a piece of shit. He's a failure. He's gone bankrupt multiple times. He can't pay his bills, and he's a flim-flam man and a grifter, right? And, he's convinced himself of this other narrative. He clearly, whatever role they've given him, whatever role that he's, they want him to play, he's playing it willingly and has lost sight of reality. And the fucked up shit he just said, I talk about how words really aren't that important because there's so many words, people verbalizing their opinions and their takes on things, and it means nothing, right? Actions, of course, mean more than words, but words lead to actions and, attitudes. But this thing he just said words matter. This fucked up shit he just said about the Palestinian people and what he wants to do there and what he thinks he can do when he has the power to do as a president. These other countries are all watching this shit. And Trump bullying them with potential tariffs. He was threatening all of our allies, saying we're getting a bad deal from all these people. And there's a reason they're letting America have the world reserve currency because, one, will protect them in terms of NATO. These are bad deals, whatever, good deals that are being done to allow the status quo. But if Trump starts hitting these allies with tariffs, he wants to hit the European Union with tariffs, he wants to renegotiate all these deals. And, if your allies just say, fuck you, they can do the math. And they can figure out, well, we'll get a better deal from China. I mean, they're all calculating that. What if we take down America? What does China give us as a deal? Because this is like, these are big corporations, so they're negotiating these things. And so Trump forcing this, whatever he's doing in Israel, there's the United Nations, which, it's sucky as it is. It has some plans and some, wants to think it has some power in all these countries that are involved. And they're meeting behind closed doors. At some point, they're like, fuck you, America. You gave us a Biden who was, half dead and he was puppeted in that fucking bullshit war that's causing havoc in the Ukraine and all the things that we're doing. And now what Trump's trying to do in Israel, fuck you guys. You guys can't elect a reasonable person as president. You guys, your attitudes are way off base. You don't realize how good you got in terms of lifestyle. And you guys are pushing for more in all these countries that he's pissing off, all these leaders. And they're just like, all right, let's just take America down, right? Like, it's just, he's flirting with something because he's just oblivious to all these things, right? And the powers that be want America to go down. The New World Order plan, whatever you want to call it, Agenda 31, the next phase, you can't have the lifestyle you have. That's why they're rolling out these rules and laws, and they're building these apartment complexes, these 15-minute cities all over the place. They're doing it globally, and they're forcing their citizens to adhere to these things. You think they're not going to force Americans to do that? And you don't think Trump will totally push, these settlements like he's talking about, resettling people? You think that just is the Palestinian people? He doesn't think he's going to do it to you? This is the end. He's telling you what their plan is, what he wants to do with the Palestinian people, build some settlement in some other country. He's going to want to do it to you too. He doesn't value you more than the Palestinian people. You're just a cog in the wheel to these people, and Trump is just a fucking unhinged nightmare. You talk about somebody who's lost it. For him to come out and say all this shit and have no idea, like, the possible effects it's going to have. I mean, it's really fucked up. It's just so fucked up, right? I mean, it's so bad. And so every Trumper should hang their head in shame, right? Every Trumper thought this guy was a savior. Like what he's verbalized here, whether they're going to do it or not, this is Trump doing things and saying things that can't be done and shouldn't be done. And it's completely unfair. And it rewards bullying behaviors. It means if you go in and start a bullshit war with a country you want to annex and you're Israel, then America will come and have your back at least as long as Trump's leader. I mean, God knows if we have American soldiers, I mean, even if we don't give Gaza, rebuild Gaza back to Israel, that means there'll be an American military in that area that will protect the Israeli people. I mean, you think they don't want that, right? They don't want to have to fight their own wars. Europe has got that deal. We have military bases in Europe that if anybody attacks Europe, that will come kick their ass, right? Like that, the Europeans don't have to fight their own wars anymore. And so, but Trump gets rid of NATO, and they're like, well, you guys are too resource heavy. And even if we weren't, the 15-minute city is a real fucking thing. You can see the buildings going up everywhere. I see new apartments of these new, they're the same kind of apartments. There's shops, there's restaurants and shops and things below, and there's apartments above. And they're building them everywhere. If you live in a place where there's more people moving to your city, you're going to see this everywhere. They're putting in these rules, and the more liberal cities are adapting these things. And before you know it, there's going to be rules about your livestock and these things, growing food, getting people off the land, and putting people in these colonies, just like he's talking about with the Palestinian people. And so this is Trump bringing that in. He's not your hero. He's not your savior. He's a dumb piece of shit that's out there thinking like he's beating his chest like he's king of the fucking world. He's king of the apes, right? So let's get back to it here. Okay, so I went to eat lunch. I should have looked at Fox News, but I looked at MSNBC and CNN, and they were going nuts. Of course they were. And so, I mean, it's just so fucking nuts. So let me show you some of those clips here.
Good day. I'm Chris Jansing, live at MSNBC headquarters in New York City. The ultimate disruption. Global leaders stunned and outraged over Donald Trump's audacious pitch to take over Gaza, kicking out 2 million people and remaking it into an international tourist destination. But will the backlash to get the president to back down?
It isn't a plan, right? It's Trump just saying stupid shit. We'll get into that. Let's go with more stuff here. But, it's egregious. It's so bad.
On this Wednesday, but we start with the surge of international outrage following President Trump's suggestion that the U.S. take control of Gaza and permanently evict millions of Palestinians in the process. The Washington Post describes Trump's proposal as an act of towering cruelty. Democrat Chris Van Hollen called it ethnic cleansing by another name. The head of the Jewish Democratic Council of America says it's not just extreme, but completely detached from reality.
See, here's the thing. The mainstream media sucks. All these people they're quoting and they're going to quote, and every person I show you sucks. Like I'm going to, any of these people I show you, I got Fareed Zakaria coming up, some clips. I'll see if there's something from Morning Joe, just see their reaction. Would be kind of funny. These people all suck. Like they're proven sucky people and sucky institutions, the mainstream media, other politicians. And anything they say about Trump's proposal is 100% spot on. There's nothing that you can say about what Trump has said that's good, that's reasonable. Like they said, detached from reality. Like nobody would ever propose such crazy shit, right? And, when you think about Joe Biden, when we complain or we make fun of Joe Biden, mock Joe Biden, whatever, or Joe Biden stuff, it's because he said crazy ass shit and did that crazy ass stuff because he had dementia, right? Like that was the whole thing, about him, his not being able to walk upstairs, all of these things. What Trump has done here is far worse than anything Biden ever said or proposed, and Biden has a long history of gaffes. Like this is the most fucked up thing a president has ever said in my lifetime, just ridiculous. And it isn't like he just said it off the cuff, like he does when he goes to places. He wrote it down, he read it with Netanyahu there in an official this is a diplomatic visit in an official capacity. And this is a plan that could never happen, but he just threw it out there and without ever thinking of, what it means. And with other things that Trump does, well, let me get back to that. Let me show you the next part here.
That level of norm-busting brazenness and possible illegality reflected in headlines around the country. But in Gaza, Trump sees opportunity, suggesting that he would turn it into, quote, the Riviera of the Middle East.
I don't think people should be going back to Gaza. I think that Gaza has been very unlucky for them. They've lived like hell. They lived like you're living in hell. Gaza is not a place for people to be living. Why would they want to return? The place has been hell. It's been one of the meanest, toughest places on earth.
So again, if this is all this is, because I don't know how much further this could go, in terms of, we won't see it being actualized. It's so fucked up. I mean, his supporters, the Republican candidate, Republican politicians, his people, I mean, everyone's got to be like, holy shit, did we elect another Biden? Has he fucking completely lost it, right? But it shows you his worldview. He thinks that the Gazans shouldn't want to live there, so they should just be happy to move to some other place. That they don't want to live there, so in Trump's view, let's just move them out of there. No reasonable person want to live there. It's not up to him. They're not Americans. They didn't vote for you, right? They didn't elect you to get rid of to take them out of their homeland. Nobody, you're not in charge of them. They're a sovereign country. They're sovereign people. I don't know about country, whatever they call that, because they're not giving them legitimacy. But it shows how Trump thinks he just knows better. This is the ultimate in mansplaining. This is Trump-splaining to the Palestinian people. You guys don't have to live there. You can live somewhere else, right? You can go to every part of the world and any place where anybody's suffering and say, don't suffer there, and move those people into some Agenda 2131 housing. And it's not that far off, because this is what they want to do. They want to move people into settlements. And, they want to take people from land that they want. I mean, he said they can turn this into the Middle Eastern Riviera, right? Because it's beautiful. You see the ocean. You'll see the ocean up here.
But Trump's opinion doesn't match the pictures we've been seeing in recent weeks. Tens of thousands of Palestinians voluntarily returning home after the ceasefire with Israel, even if it means pitching tents amid the destruction. And they're sending a message to Trump that they're not going anywhere.
We can't leave our homes. How you dare? How dare you?
How dare you?
Freaking out.
How dare
freaking out.
you?
It's
How
all right.
dare
Settle
you?
down.
Anything you want that, but the bottom line is very clear. You? When you cross the border illegally, you have given up the...
How dare you be so flippant, man?
Well, we say, how dare they?
See, there's the blue water, right? So this is, Gaza occupies a ton of beachfront property. And so the Mediterranean Sea is known for just its beauty. I mean, it's one of the places where people go to vacation. And Trump sees vacation property. So these people, he says, are living in a shithole, it's a horrible place because Israel blew the shit out of it. But they have beaches and they have the ocean and there's resources there. And they have, it's their ancestral homes. I showed you a video a long time ago, not that long ago, like last year. And a Jewish guy is taking a Palestinian's home. And they know each other. And he's just moved into their home. And he says, if I don't do it, somebody else will. And he's just kicking them out of their homes. They were living in nice places. And when the UN drew up the lines of which is Palestine and which is Israel, they had to move out. They had to move out of their homes and make room for these people who are Israeli Jewish people moving into their homes. Many of those people were airlifted in to bolster the numbers. And they had to give up they were rich people, many of them were giving up their rich homes. Some of them were professionals, all these people. And so, it's the same thing with Hawaii, the same thing with California, where they're taking primo land, beachfront property, and then Trump wants to build some sort of Trump paradise, Trump Towers, settlement there where people can go vacation and they can extract the resources from the oil and things like this, the natural gas. The Palestinian people will be in some project in Egypt or some shit like that. And it sounds crazy, but this is the plan. They've already started doing this shit in Hawaii. I saw them doing this in India, where they opened up the floodgates. You guys see my videos on this. You know, I was in Chennai when the flood happened, and they flood 4/5 of a city that had like 26 million people in it. You know, all these people died, and then there's people squatting and living by the riverfront, and they're now turning the riverfront into all this valuable property, right? This, big river in India. This is what rich people do. They move people out, and they want, your great land. And they want you to not have the ability to own land. This is the plan, right? This is the Agenda 31 plan.
In the Oval Office, where he sort of put out the test balloons in saying that why would Gazans want to go back? It was striking to be there, and there are still many important questions for which we don't have answers. And in the Q&A with the president in the East Room, I pressed him on a couple of things because when he laid this out, he did it in that sort of normal cadence as if he was reading the kind of agreements we see all the time with world leaders. It didn't have the shockwaves that it is now having, whether it is real or simply provocative. So I wanted to know what kind of legal authority would allow the U.S. to do this, and is this U.S. troops on the ground? Here's how the president responded. You are talking tonight about the United States taking over a sovereign territory. What authority would allow you to do that? Are you talking about a permanent occupation there? Redevelopment?
I do see a long-term ownership.
Look at this dude's face there. Watch this guy here. So Trump just said long-term ownership. Like you can't own a country. Like you just can't go say we own Gaza now. I decree that we own Gaza. There's international fucking rules. And it sounds like, just the suggestion of this would make people go, we got to get rid of this motherfucker. Like people in other countries, right? I mean, China's probably working the phone saying, look at this motherfucker. Who'd rather have, us or him, right?
Position, and I see it bringing great stability to that part of the Middle East and maybe the entire Middle East. And everybody I've spoken to, this was not a decision made lightly. Everybody I've spoken to loves the idea of the United States owning that piece of land, developing and creating thousands of jobs with something that will be magnificent.
So I'm going to go back to the whole press conference. Look at that guy's mouth. His mouth is agape. Like nobody can fucking believe this. This is like the Luka Doncic trade. Like this kind of thing where no one believes this is really happening. Like it makes no fucking sense, right? Like there's been two things this past week that makes no sense. Why the Dallas Mavericks would trade Luka Doncic and why Trump would say, I mean, of course, this is much more profound, but where people are like, what? Wait, this didn't happen, right? This is not real. Like, is this a joke? Like, he's saying this like he's trolling, but he's not, right? He's fucking serious. Now, they're not going to be able to do this. There's no way this gets done. And so it's even worse that he's saying it. Like, is he just fucking lost his mind? There's no value here. Let me just say that. Because they're going to get into, is he trolling? Well, let's show you that.
The everybody we do know includes, to some degree, Benjamin Netanyahu. I was able to follow up with him directly and ask him about this view, and he called it fresh thinking. He said it was interesting. It should be considered as a new vision for the region, and he was open to it. Obviously, there would be inherent benefits to Israel if threats from Palestinians were not at their doorstep, and if there would be even potentially expansion of Israeli settlements.
He was smiling like he just won the fucking lottery, right? I mean, it's so fucked up. The part I want to really emphasize, if you're a Trumper, it's not, you're not going to do it, but it's time to admit, holy shit, this guy's fucking off the rails. He's not the guy we thought he was. He ain't saving shit, right? This motherfucker isn't going to save anything. He's one of them, and he's like the worst one.
Again, the president was talking about the U.S. owning it, not expanding Israel. But again, we're in a world of so many questions right now. But other, certainly leaders in the region, and Richard can speak to this, have raised very serious questions.
This is where people are like, well, what are we going to do with this guy? Like, this guy's a fucking problem. There's just, like, it becomes like, how do we get rid of this? Like, when Joe Biden was starting shit on himself, right? Like, they had to, what are we going to do about this guy, right?
Thanks so much, Kelly O'Donnell at the White House. Peter, you have a really great take on this today. Among the things you write is this: When it came to Gaza, Mr. Trump's thinking on
Mr. Trump, not President Trump.
Tuesday was so far outside the box that it was not clear he even knew there was a box. Provocative, intriguing, outlandish, outrageous, and not at all presidential. As Kelly just said, do we know if this is real, if it's simply provocative, maybe another part of his strategy to flood the zone? So we're talking about this and not about Elon Musk or mass deportations or shutting down the Department of Education. What do you think?
I think you're all fucked in the head.
I couldn't resist. Okay, so the thing about tariffs, now he's using bully tactics, and they could backfire, right? But he has leverage because with tariffs, he can change the dynamics of imports versus exports, the ratio, all these things. And these countries don't want the tariffs. And so if he imposes these tariffs, and they're like, well, this guy's crazy, he can do that, and he's not going to back down, then they'll negotiate with him, and he can get something out of them. It's a negotiating tool. I don't like it. It's bullying. There's a lot of things about it that suck. There's a video clip of him talking about he doesn't want to do sanctions against Iran, which makes kids starve. But, he doesn't give a shit, right? I'll show you that clip next, then we'll go back to the Fireside chat, then I'll get to the press conference. But, the tariffs have you can understand why he's using it as a leverage tool. It has leverage. Trump has leverage, which is these people don't want the tariffs, right? Now, in terms of leverage that he has, the Palestinian people have almost no negotiating power. And so they're negotiating with the, whatever that Hamas thing is, which is, obviously an Israeli asset that's being funded by, the IDF so they can do all this shit. But let's say it's not. The Palestinian people don't have a seat at the table. They don't even have a table, right? And so he's not going to bully them into saying, all right, we'll give you up this because we don't want to be shipped out of here. Like, they're not going to, they're not being bullied in that way because they're already fucked. They have no military. They have no seat at the UN. They have nothing. The UN gave them something recently, but they don't have any allies and support, anybody with money behind them. Nobody wants them. The Arab people don't like Israel, but they don't want to deal with the Palestinian problem either. The various countries that are Muslim countries around that region. And so it's not like this is a negotiation tool. It isn't like this is some way that he can, bully them into, scare them into taking some other deal because they're going to give Israel everything they want anyway, right? Israel is going to get their hostages back, and they're not going to back down. They're going to have a military presence in the region until America comes in or whatever Trump wants to do here. And so there's no reasonable explanation for him saying this. It's something that would never get done, and it scares the shit out of other people, which you say, well, maybe he's trying to scare people. But there's just so much crazy that they'll allow until they, kneecap the American economy or some shit where we're reeling, right? And the plan is for all of us to get Palestinian, all of us to be moved to these fucking... we know they've stated this at the World Economic Forum that Trump appeared on 2 days after he was sworn in. And so, this is part of the plan for everybody. 15-minute cities, it's all that agenda. And so, if this is just part of that rollout, whatever this is, whether Trump is being encouraged to say these things, because behind closed doors, lots of people in power, this is their solution. Get rid of people, take people's homes away and stick them in settlements and, whatever that is and whatever it means for the Palestinian people, because that's Agenda 31.
Please.
Prime Minister, you said earlier today that it was tough for you to implement these sanctions on Iran, but you did indicate that you were willing to negotiate with them. What would that look like, and are you in conversations with them? And the same for the Prime Minister, sir.
I hated doing it. I want Iran to be peaceful and successful. I hated doing it. I did it once before, and we brought them down to a level where they were unable to give any money. They had a...
Okay, so economic sanctions make children die of starvation. I've shown you that clip so much of President Clinton's Secretary of State, whatever her name was. I just showed it recently where 500,000 children starved in Iraq from economic sanctions. And she says it's worth it. I think it was worth it, right? Hard choices, which was Hillary Clinton. Remember her whole big thing about hard choices. And so we know what happens when you do economic sanctions. Kids starve. Like it happens 100% across the board. You don't drop any bombs. It doesn't cost you anything militarily, but you starve and basically are murdering children. It happened during the COVID shutdowns. All these countries that were living, these poor countries that need to export things and import things, and they couldn't, and children starve. It always comes down to children starving, people starving, adults starving, but the number one group is children, and these things may or may not have to be done. He says it's a bad thing. I didn't really want to do it. I hate doing it. Well, yeah, you're making children starve. This is why I would never want this job, because it involves killing kids. Like part of the thing is it's killing people, not just kids, animals, and destroying environments and things, right? Because we need to do evil shit to keep our country going. That's the bottom line. And some of these things you could give Trump a pass for, but some of them he's just doing on his own. Because we fucked Iran up in the first place when we took down their democratically elected leader Mossadegh, and Operation Ajax. The CIA fucked that country over, and it's still fucked, right? We did that to that country, 100%. Like their situation right now is our fault.
Survived themselves, and they had no money. They were essentially broke, and they had no money for, as I said, Hezbollah. They had no money for Hamas. They had no money for any form of terror. The 28, if you call it, the 28 sites of terror. They had no money for any.
So this is him backing Israel 100%, kneecapping Iran, which of course is Russia's ally, and a lot of countries don't like Israel. A lot of countries don't like America. And, this is World War III. And we're going to World War III. It's inevitable, but this is how Trump is doing it. Biden would have done it a different way. But when the bombs and missiles are sailing over your fucking head and our cities are blowing up and people are suffering radiation poisoning, remember that you thought this fucking guy was going to save you and you were kind of a dick about it, right? Just remember that. Remember me saying that, because this guy is leading you straight to fucking hell. So get back to the Fireside chat here.
If we can build them through massive amounts of money supplied by other people,
Let's go back a little bit here.
And right now, I've seen every picture from every angle, better than if I were there, and nobody can live there.
It's better than if you were there. The smell of burning flesh, seeing people cry, seeing these as human beings and not just pictures. What the fuck are you talking about, you piece of shit? Right? Of course it would be worse going there.
You can't live there. So if we can build...
of course you get a better perspective.
We can build them through massive amounts of money supplied by other people, very rich nations, and they're willing to supply it. If we can build something for them in one of the countries, and it could be Jordan.
Okay, so you want some countries to give up land, he's saying it could be Jordan, to give up land and pay for this, like you did with the wall. They're going to give up land, real estate, and which is always valuable, and they're going to give up land and then pay for these people to come into their country. For what reason? What reason do they want the Palestinian people to build settlements for them? What do they get out of the deal? Why would they be into this? And, at the very least, let's say they had it used for the Palestinian people and they just wanted this crisis to end. It means that Israel has won by bullying. And who's next? Who's next after the Palestinian people? Then the West Bank. And then what country? Then it's, Lebanon or whatever country. They just start annexing all these parts of their Zionist vision. They just keep on doing this. And now they have do you think they want an American military presence in Gaza? They'll now make that a U.S. territory, or where the fuck Trump's talking about? No Middle East, no Muslim country wants that shit. The great Satan, they want the great Satan now to have a military presence and own a part of the Gaza Strip, or own the Gaza Strip.
And they're willing to supply it. If we can build something for them in one of the countries, and it could be Jordan, and it could be Egypt, it could be other countries, And you could build 4 or 5 or 6 areas. It doesn't have to be one area.
Let's split all these people up. Let's take each member of the family, and then like if there's 6-member families, let's build 6 settlements, and put a member of the family in each different settlement. Let's break up moms and babies.
But you take certain areas and you build really good quality housing, like a beautiful town, like someplace where they can live and not die, because
he's a fucking moron. Like, I mean, what are you talking about? It's like some drunken guy in a bar stool who's just come up with this fucking solution. Everyone's like, yeah, that's not,
Gaza is a guarantee that they're going to end up dying. The same thing's going to happen again. It's happened over and over again, and it's going to happen again.
Because these guys are never going to give in. They're always going to bomb the shit in. They don't care about genocide or killing kids.
They wouldn't want to
These guys are always going to do that.
go back. Who would want to go back? They've experienced nothing but death and destruction.
Yeah, at the hands of this guy right here, this motherfucker. That's the problem. Look right there. This is the motherfucker. You should say, stop killing kids, you fucking child murderer. Right? Just this guy right here.
What will you do then?
Well, I don't think they're going to tell me no.
Who's not going to tell you no?
I think they're going to tell Biden no, and I think they're going to tell other people no.
So you think it will happen?
What do you mean, tell Biden no? Tell Biden no on what? The guy's fucking... Biden right now is staring at a wall someplace, eating an ice cream cone, taking a shit in his diaper. Like, what are you talking about? This has nothing to do with Biden. What do you... Like, what the fuck?
I think they're going to tell Biden no, and I think they're going to tell other people no.
Kamala no? Kamala and Biden, they're going to tell them no, but they're giving you a yes?
Do you think it will happen at the end?
I think there's a good chance, yeah.
How many people are you thinking about?
All of them. I mean, we're talking about...
Yeah, not everyone, every fucking one. The rats. We want to take the rats with you. Pied Piper them motherfuckers out of there.
Probably 1,000,007 people, 1,000,007, maybe 1,000,008. But I think all of
Tells
them...
how many. Tells me how this motherfucker killed. We don't know. We don't have a body count from what Israel has done to them, but it could be 100,000 either way.
I think they'll be resettled in areas where they can live a beautiful life and not be worried about dying every day.
Mr. President, do you support...
No.
Building settlements, Jewish settlements back in Gaza in the next years?
Say it.
Building settlements, Jewish settlements back in Gaza in the next year. Do you support this idea?
I don't see it happening. It's too dangerous for people. Nobody can go there. It's too dangerous. Nobody wants to be there. Warriors don't want to be there. Soldiers don't want to be there. How can you have people go back? You're saying go back into Gaza now? The same thing's going to happen.
They're going back right now. 10,000 people just poured back into the country. And, because of the peace deal. And they want to be there because they're fucking home, bro.
It'll only be death. The best way to do it is you go out and you get beautiful, open areas with the sunlight.
In the middle of the fucking desert.
Coming through.
No,
and
that's not what I meant.
Something
nice.
Building
Israeli
they are not
settlements back
going
in Gaza.
They are not going to want to go back to Gaza.
Prime Minister Netanyahu.
They're not going to. Well, just 10,000 people proves you wrong. Like, just a piece of shit, right? What if we said you have to move out of Mar-a-Lago, you fuck? And, will you fight for it, right? You fight for your home being taken away from you?
What is your message to the families of the hostages that look at this deal, that are worried that this deal won't go through? What do you say to them at this moment?
Same message I said from the beginning of the war. We'll get them out, get them back. We got over 70%, close to 75% of the people who everybody believed will not get out. We got them in successive deals, and most recently with the help of President Trump. We're not going to give up on any of them, and we're not going to give up on our other war aims. Hamas is not going to be in Gaza, and we're going to get everyone back.
Hamas.
You would not have...
Hamas holes. What did I call them? Hamas holes?
How optimistic are you about reaching phase 2 of the ceasefire? How optimistic are you about that happening?
Well, we're going to try. That's one of the reasons, one of the things we're going to talk about here. And if we, when Israel and the United States work together, and President Trump and I work together, the chances go up a lot.
They go up a lot when Trump is on board. And green light and everything we want to do, and he comes up with crazy ass shit like he's saying.
It's when we don't work together, Israel and the United States don't work together, that creates problems. When the other side sees daylight between us and occasionally in the last few years, to put it mildly.
You mean Biden? Biden and Kamala Harris, do you mean? Biden who said he was a fucking Zionist? And he, because he dared to say you guys stop murdering Palestinian kids?
They saw daylight. Then it's more difficult. When we cooperate,
Isn't it the right
chances
time
are
to
good.
quit once and for all?
Say it.
Now that Iran is so weak, isn't it the right time to hit their nuclear facilities once and for all?
So you say Iran is so weak. I appreciate you saying that. They're not weak. They're very strong right now, and we're not going to allow them to have a nuclear weapon. It's very simple. I signed a very strong proclamation. Iran was in big trouble when I left. They were broke. They didn't have money for Hamas. They didn't have any money for Hezbollah. You had no problem. October 7th could have never happened. When I left, October 7th could have never happened. And frankly, Russia and Ukraine, as I said, could never have happened. They became very strong, very fast. They sold massive amounts of oil to China and everybody else who would not buy the oil when I was president, because we said, don't buy the oil.
And he said, don't buy the oil. Let's starve these motherfuckers. See how many kids we can cause to starve to death, because we'll do anything for Israel. Well, I'll lick as many Israeli balls as I possibly have to. He's fucking total frickin'. He said total frickin'. Bow before your God. Bow before your master.
And they became very rich very quickly, but they're not weak. They're not weak. They're strong. Doesn't mean they won't be weak. But you know what? We just don't want them to have a nuclear weapon. They can't have a nuclear weapon.
The Prime Minister, sorry, Mr. President, the Prime Minister wants you to strike Iran. That's what he wants.
You don't know what he wants. What do you know about anything? Go ahead.
What do you know about anything? I'm the guy who said we're going to fucking own Gaza. I know shit. You don't know nothing.
But is that option on the table?
Yes,
President Trump, is that option on the table?
You're not just talking about Jordan.
No, it could be other places too. There are many people that have reached out, many countries, many leaders of countries that have reached out that would like to participate in that. Doesn't have to be Jordan and Egypt, but I think it would be also them.
Mr. President, your relationship with Mr.
He's got to be like, holy fuck, I'm going to be president soon. I think I might be president because this motherfucker's flaming out.
Netanyahu knew ups and downs. How do you describe it right
No, I think it's mostly ups.
Mr. President. Palestinian Authority shouldn't rule Gaza because Gaza will be empty.
What?
The Palestinian Authority.
Look at these, how happy these two guys are. They're like, oh my God, I couldn't believe it was going to be this good.
Can it rule Gaza? What do you think?
Well, it's had a pretty hard time, wouldn't you say? I'd say it's had a pretty bad time of it.
Mr. President, Qatar has, you've criticized them in the past as a funder of terrorism, so as the Prime Minister. Do you think they're part of the solution or part of a problem moving forward?
I think they're trying to help. Qatar
Yep.
is absolutely trying to help. I know them very well, and
I know those Qataris.
Everything they can. Very tough situation, but they're absolutely trying to help. Okay, thank you very much.
Boom. So that was that part. Let's go to the press conference. He did this first. I guess he rolled this out first. And that's what they're saying. He was kind of wetting his beak here. And then he did the thing at the press conference second. That's how I understand it. Okay, so I'm going to go through this and just get the highlights. The first 7 minutes and 27 seconds are, just Trump bullshitting and bragging and all the things he did and all the other things that Obama and Biden did wrong. And then he gets into Israel here a little bit.
Endured a sustained, aggressive, and murderous...
Go back here.
The horrors of October 7th would never have happened if I were president. The Ukraine and Russia disaster would never have happened if I were president. Over the past 16 months, Israel has endured a sustained, aggressive, and murderous assault on every front, but they fought back bravely. You see that, and you know that.
Okay, so you're making them sound like they were not only the victims, but they're being bullied, right? And so, just this alone. I mean, this is something where most of the mainstream media would agree with, most of the other politicians, even Democrats, would agree with, and it's fucked up. Like, this is fucked up. To make it sound like Israeli lives, they lost like something like, the official story is they lost something like 1,700 people, maybe less than that, maybe 700, whatever it is, on October 7th. And the Palestinians have lost 40,000, right? And then, they've lost electricity and food and water. They had to move out of their country. I mean, they're living in fear and terror, these things. The Palestinian people are taking a beating, and children are dying, civilians are dying. It has nothing to do with any of these things, the Hamas stuff. And to blame Hamas for all of it is, you're rewarding the bully, and you're rewarding the country that wants to take and has been bullying the Palestinian people. If Hamas was legitimate, if it wasn't an Israeli asset, which I'm pretty sure it is, at least partially, or whatever that means, whatever their relationship is. If it wasn't an Israeli asset, it was actual opposition, then, the Palestinian people, if they had a military, they've been getting the shit kicked out of them for years. And if you look at the death toll, the death count, it's astronomically favored towards, more Palestinian people have died. Many more hundreds of thousands of people have died as opposed to Israelis, right? Trump rubber stamping that belief. Kamala Harris and Joe Biden, they would say all the things that Trump's saying, and then they would say, but also we have to be concerned of loss of life in Palestine. And when they did that, Israel completely, Benjamin Netanyahu and the Israeli, government and media slammed them for just these little things, these little, acknowledgments that the Palestinian people might actually have a right to live and have, some sort of claim on their land and the two-state solution, right? Just to acknowledge that as a possibility, not even really believing it, just saying it to say it, to appease some radical liberal college kids who are protesting this, just for votes and not to lose that demographic, just to acknowledge the fact that Palestinian kids were being murdered. It was too much for Israel. And Trump, wouldn't do that. He won't even do that, right?
And what we have witnessed is an all-out attack on the very existence of a Jewish state in the Jewish homeland. The Israeli...
No, it was called Palestine. Land has passed back and forth. Nobody really owns land. Governments are just a construct. They're not backed by the divine will. They are what they are. You own something until somebody beats the shit out of you and takes it from you. Like, that's how nature works. Every animal knows this, right? They're marking their territory. It's your territory until something bigger and stronger takes it from you, right? That's how territory works. Nothing is ever considered yours. Most creatures are nomadic for that reason, because you get pushed out. Sometimes it's just by nature. Sometimes it's by drought. Sometimes it's by tsunami. Sometimes it could be any number of reasons. But you don't own things. Like, it's not yours. You happen to be on this planet, and you try to carve out your little spot for yourself. And now there's governments and all these things that do that. But it's not God-given, and that's the most important part. It's not their homeland. It's as much as the Palestinian homeland as it is the Jewish homeland. This beef has been going on for 3,000 years, and this earth has been here a lot longer than that, right? And so you're claiming that the Jews have some right, Israelis have some kind of right to this land, and they don't, right? Neither do the Palestinians in that sense, but they both live there. And you can't say that one side has more of a claim than the other, based on your bullshit religion that you don't even believe in, because you don't read the Bible and you're not a godly person. You think of yourself as a god.
Israelis have stood strong and united in the face of an enemy that has kidnapped, tortured, raped, and slaughtered innocent men, women, children, and even little babies.
Okay, so and Israel's done nothing to the Palestinian people. What the fuck are you talking about, you piece of shit? This is the thing for you Trumpers, right? Well, I'll get to that at the end of this.
I salute the Israeli people for meeting this trial with courage and determination and unflinching resolve. They have been strong.
They've been strong. Those people strong.
In our meetings today, the Prime Minister and I focused on the future, discussing how we can work together to ensure Hamas is eliminated and ultimately restore peace to a very troubled region. It's been troubled, but what's happened in the last 4 years has not been good. I want to thank Prime Minister Netanyahu for working closely with my transition team, the special envoy.
Okay, so there's that. Let's move to the next section here. You know, I'm going to say this at the end, but I want to say it multiple times. For you Trumpers, you know, this is the worst. I mean, this is a power group, right? The Jewish lobby, the Israeli lobby. This is a power group. It's one of the power groups. And, they extract so much of our resources from us and so much of the American, it's a one-sided deal. We get very little from our relationship with Israel. We have a place in the Middle East and whatever, an ally in the Middle East. But we have multiple allies. We have all these countries we buy oil from, all these things, right? But they get so much from us. And they influence so much in our culture and so many different things in terms of everything to do with American life. And so many people blame them in the truth community for everything. And so it should be impossible for you to reconcile this with your belief about Trump. Because Trump could have said this shit on the campaign trail, right? Like, he didn't say this to you, at your rallies. He didn't say this in private. He said he was going to back Israel. He said all these things, whatever. I mean, like, a lot of the Republican people believe in this bullshit, a lot of evangelical Christians. But this is, it's so extreme. He's so fucked up. And so, like, you should, like, be able to see, and you can't. And that's something of great concern for not just you, but all these different demographics of people. When something's so blatantly right in your face that this guy doesn't give a shit about you and he's lying about who he is and what he believes in. But you can't see it. You just won't see it, right? And this is like everybody wants to see what they want to see, even in the face of reality, just slapping them in the face.
Boy. Steve Witkoff, who's here somewhere. Steve?
Okay, so let's move to the next part here. So he thanks all the people that say they're going to solve the problem. And, he's consulted these people. They've had a discussion because he doesn't know shit about this region, right? He's seen pictures. He's not an expert on this. He just thinks he knows everything. He thinks he's better than everybody, like he's just great, smart. He's not. He's a moron, like he's stupid. And so he talks to these people. And so this must have been somebody's idea. I mean, the neocons would totally sign off on this and agree with it, right? The neocons, I mean, you'd listen to them. They didn't like Trump, but they love this. And, this is his plan here, their plan.
I think very quickly. I also strongly believe that the Gaza Strip, which has been a symbol of death and destruction for so many decades and so bad for the people anywhere near it, and especially those who live there, and frankly, who's been really very unlucky. It's been very unlucky. It's been an unlucky place for a long time. Being in its presence just has not been good, and it should not go through a process of rebuilding and occupation by the same people that have really stood there and fought for it and lived there and died there and lived a miserable existence there. Instead, we should go to other countries of interest with humanitarian hearts, and there are many of them that want to do this, and build various domains that will ultimately be occupied by the 1.8 million Palestinians living in Gaza, ending the death and destruction and, frankly, bad luck.
Fuck. It sounds like so crazy even the second. It seems crazier now.
This can be paid for by neighboring countries of great wealth. It could be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 7, 8, 12. It could be numerous sites, or it could be one large site. But the people will be...
Okay, so one large site. This is 1.8 million people, right? I was looking at various places I lived, city-wise. I was watching... I watched these two Westerns, which were kind of fucked up, that were on Netflix. And I was thinking about, places I was in... Taos, I was there for about a month, and it's like their population's like 8,000 people. Santa Fe is like 100,000. I lived there for a while. Like, there's just, there's people around that region. But, when you're talking about 2 million people, see, there's all these cities that are big cities and states where they have 1 million people, and they support baseball, football, and basketball teams. Like, that's enough population, and there's the regions of suburbs and other counties and things. But, these cities that a 2 million people city, well, let me just, check here. So Los Angeles, Chicago, New York, and Houston, Texas are all cities with more than 2 million people, right? Chicago has 2.7, Houston has 2.3. Phoenix, Arizona, 1.7 million people. Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, 1.6. So you're going to build a Phoenix. I mean, that's probably the closest one. You're going to build the civilization of Phoenix, or you're going to split Phoenix up over 12 different places. Think how fucking stupid that is. 1.8 million people. You're going to build settlements for 1.8 million people, and you're going to expect other countries to pay for it, to put up settlements just for immigrants, illegal, people pouring through their border. These people that came out of Syria and out of these countries when America bombed the shit out of them in the Iraq War, and now France has all these people they don't want there because they have open borders. Like all the shit you say about immigration, you expect some country to all of a sudden build a Phoenix in the next 6 months to get all the Palestinian people out of there? It's stupid as shit, you moron. Even you as a real estate developer. No, you can't build, the infrastructure you need, the power, the internet, the, where they get their food, the railway, just you take a plot of land somewhere. I mean, you were complaining about all those Haitian people that went to that Springfield, Illinois, where they were eating the dogs. They're eating the dogs.
In Springfield, they're eating the dogs. The people that came in, they're eating the cats. They're eating the pets of the people that live there.
You got shit for brains. You're a fucking moron. Like, what person would say something like this? For whatever reason. You can't build a Phoenix in 6 months. You can't build a Philadelphia. I mean, these cities, it takes years to grow a population. You're going to build settlements, multiple settlements to house 1.7 billion people, right? Million people. It could be 250, 300,000 people. I mean, if you live in a city of 100,000 people, a small town, whatever, 60,000, these towns that are around, whatever it is, cities, and you look at just all the strip malls you have and the Costco and this and that and the Whole Foods here and a fucking supermarket there and whatever the fuck you have, right? And then all the things you need. And then you have like internet companies and you have, power companies. You have to have a power plant, electricity and shit. You can't just put that together and it takes years to do that. Unless you have one built already somewhere and you're just going to dump the Palestinian people in there because there's some Agenda 31 shit. And that's fucked up too. Then say that, right? Because if you're expecting somebody to build something like that and then you rebuild the Gaza Strip, which will take years.
Be able to live in comfort and peace, and we'll make sure something really spectacular is done. They're going to have peace. They're not going to be shot at and killed and destroyed like this civilization of wonderful people has had to endure. The only reason the Palestinians want to go back to Gaza is they have no alternative.
You know that? You know every one of them? You didn't even go there. You saw pictures. Fuck.
It's right now a demolition site. This is just a demolition site. Virtually every building is down. They're living under fallen concrete that's very dangerous and very precarious. They instead can occupy all of a beautiful area with homes and safe.
So what beautiful area? They're going to have a beachfront property someplace? It's going to be in the fucking desert. They're now living with beachfront property in the Gaza Strip. They have an ocean, beautiful ocean there with resources. Where are they going to be? What country was going to give up beachfront property for 1.8 million people? What the fuck are you talking about?
And they can live out their lives in peace and harmony instead of having to go back and do it again. The U.S. will take over the Gaza Strip, and we will do a job with it, too.
We'll do a job with it.
And be responsible for dismantling all of the dangerous unexploded bombs and other weapons on the site, level the site and get rid of the destroyed buildings, level it out, create an economic development that will supply unlimited numbers of jobs and housing for the people of the area.
Well, you mean the people that you've shipped out to another place, they're going to return there now? So the people that you're going to build these developments. Israel doesn't even have a population of 100,000. They have 900,000, almost a million people. They don't have a population of 1 million people. So it's twice the population of Israel. They have about 900,000 people in Israel as of 2024. And so You're going to build this big city, these big cities that are going to house as many people that are in Israel. You're going to build 2 Israels, and then you're going to have the people come back to Gaza to do work, or you're going to bring in new people, or Israel people from Israel are going to work there. Like, what the fuck you talking about, bro? You know, like you're just somebody check his fucking Depends diapers because I think he's gone fucking senile too.
Do something different. Just can't go back. If you go back, it's going to end up the same way it has for 100 years. I'm hopeful that this ceasefire.
Okay, for 100 years, what the fuck you don't even understand. It's only been around since 1940, whatever it is, right? It was 46 that they established Palestine. There was no conflict before that. There was Palestine, and there was Jewish people living in Palestine, and then they split this country up, and the Israeli people started to take more and more of the Palestinian land because they were given an army and they were supported by America. That's the history. It's undeniable, right? There was no fighting there. They just had all these people that they wanted to establish a state of Israel. And so it's a fucked up thing that the UN did, and that took years to do, and there was an already established country. You didn't have to build new housing. Like there was, all the people that were living there.
It could be the beginning of a larger and more enduring peace.
I mean, just in the Gaza Strip, he's saying there's 1.8 million people, and there's only 900,000 people in Israel, and then there's also the West Bank. There's something like 7 million Palestinians, and they've all either left or been killed, or their population has suffered drastically, and they still outnumber the Israelis. Like, he's just full of shit, right?
It will end the bloodshed and killing once and for all. With the same goal in mind, my administration has been moving quickly to restore trust in the alliance and rebuild American strength throughout the region. And we've really done that. We're a respected nation again. A lot's happened in the last couple of weeks. We are actually a very respected nation again.
Yeah, sure you are. Like, this is going to help you out, bro. Everyone thinks you're batshit crazy. Like, if you're trying to bait people and work them, you've already got the terrorist thing going. You don't need to do this shit. Like, you're just unhinged. At some point, people are going to say, fuck America. We gotta, the last 2 presidents, the way that America's going. In fact, it has to happen anyway. They have to take away your lifestyle. Your lifestyle is out of stock. That's already a fact. Everyone kind of knows it. And everyone who thought this guy could solve your problems, this is the kind of fucking bullshit, crazy shit that he's contradicting himself even as he speaks, right? Saying things that could never happen. It's imaginary. You can't build a city for 2 million people in a couple of months, right?
I ended the last administration's de facto arms embargo on over $1 billion in military assistance for Israel. And
there you go. Give them more fucking money. And then dump whatever amount of money you're going to dump into this goofy plan of yours. You have to do environmental studies and all these things that you have to do just to, it would take 6 months before you would even you put a shovel to the ground, right? Like, he knows this in terms of building codes and all this stuff. You just can't go, all right, let's build 12 cities for 300,000 people apiece. Let's just get it done. We'll do it in a short period of time. It would take years to do that. Like 10 years. Like, fucking, there'd have to be support for it, not just some jackass coming up with some ridiculous plan that someone would think he's drunk for even suggesting.
I'm also pleased to announce that this afternoon the United States withdrew from the anti-Semitic UN Human Rights Council and ended all of the support for the UN relief and works.
I would be happy with that normally. Like, that's, as much as I have a disdain for the UN and all the things that it has to do with the heartfulness bullshit thing that happened and all the stuff I've seen with the UN, like, the UN is, like, reasonable compared to this motherfucker. Like, I'd be really happy America was withdrawing from the UN if it wasn't so fucking, batshit crazy what he's saying here, right? Like, this guy's fucking unhinged for you to suggested these things. There's no sense of reality going on with this motherfucker. Like, he has no sense of how this appears to other people. Like, he's just gone.
Agency which funneled money to Hamas and which was very disloyal to
humanity. Look at him shaking his head.
Today I also took action to restore a maximum pressure policy on the Iranian regime, and we will once again enforce the most aggressive possible sanctions. drive Iranian oil exports to zero and diminish the regime's capacity to fund terror throughout the region and throughout the world.
So he's pushing people into a corner to just say fuck it, and this is also pushing Russia, where like all of a sudden Iran just goes nuts, and Iran has a big army. Like I think they have 1 million people in their army, something crazy like that, like almost as many people as there are in Israel, and they could push for this where they go and they just go fuck it, we're going after Israel, and then they have an alliance with Russia, and Russia's already at war with the Ukraine, which is kind of war with America, and next thing you know, you got fucking missiles going off in New York and Chicago and shit like that, right? Like it's that level of stuff out there. Like, how much bullying are people going to accept in this area before they say, all right, we're going to fuck you over. We're going to destroy you. And he's just going to like sit there like a little victim with his tiny little fucking hands. He's going to be moaning about how unfair it is and how mean all these fucking other countries are for not accepting his brilliance.
We had no threat when I left office. Iran was not able to sell oil. Nobody was buying oil because I said, don't buy it. If you buy it, you're not doing any business with the United States. And Hamas was not being funded. Hezbollah was not being funded. Nobody was being funded. There would never...
All right, so we get the idea here. So I don't know where the press conference is. I guess there's some... Let's see if there's some... See if the Kelly O'Donnell question here is asked. See what's happened here. I want to show you this part. Because the people who back Trump, all these fucking Alex Jones, we are the resistance, we're the revolution, all these revolutionary motherfuckers, these so-called patriots who think Trump's on your side. Trump is a moneyed person. And he likes moneyed people. He likes people with money and power. He doesn't like you, has nothing in common with you. He's not a part of the revolution. He sounds like it because there's this idea of a deep state that they've created that he's battling. And it's just a bullshit QB thing, right? He's not a revolutionary. And this is what he thinks of revolutionaries.
Never have been on October 7th. 2 weeks ago, I once again designated the Houthis as a terrorist organization. They're trying to destroy world shipping lanes, and that's not going to happen. And over the weekend, I ordered...
Okay, see, he's an establishment person. Listen to this stuff. These are all people who are actually rebels. They're not insurgents. Remember, they called it an insurgency at January 6th when they were just a bunch of Trump dopes, right? But these are people who are rebelling. These are, back in the Revolutionary War. And Trump is a lord or a king or a person who's in with the moneyed people who wants to squish these rebellions or use these people's anger to justify a revolution where he takes over and becomes the new king, and he's way worse than the old king, right?
Airstrikes against senior ISIS leaders hiding in the caves of Somalia and took them out. Here in America, we've begun the process of deporting foreign terrorists, jihadists, and Hamas sympathizers from our soil, just as we have people that are extremely evil, and we're sending
extremely evil people, like you, motherfucker, who's rubber stamping this guy, murdering 20,000 children. You fuck.
Them out of our country. They came from jails, they came from mental institutions and insane asylums, and they were dumped into our country. They're gang members. We're getting them out at.
And some people are working, doing jobs that no one else will do, picking your fruit that's going to disappear from the grocery store because there's no agricultural people to laborers to pick your vegetables and fruit, and that there's tariffs preventing fruit and vegetables coming from other countries because he's put in these fucking tariffs, right?
Numbers that nobody can actually believe, and every single country is taking those people back. They said they would never take them back, and they're all taking them back, and they're taking them back very gladly.
Very gladly, they're taking these people back. You just said they were rapists, murderers, and insane people, and they're taking them back very gladly. They're not happy to have those people back. What the fuck are you talking about? You lying sack of shit, right?
And I recently signed an executive order combating the vile wave of anti-Semitism that we've seen in the aftermath of the October 7th attacks. Together, America and Israel will renew the optimism that shined so brightly just 4 years ago. It was really a bright, beautiful light.
Bright, beautiful light it was, the optimism. See, he's an establishment person. He's not a sport of revolution. He's not a revolutionary. He calls people terrorists when they're actually revolutionaries. They're people fighting for their rights. They're being abused. These are the people that are being abused by big corporations and powerful people. He licks the balls of banks and Wall Street and these powerful organizations that do all this evil damage across. They're real evil people and evil shit that they're doing. Right? That's his people. That's what Trump is. Right? Trump's a part of that. This thing with Israel. He's on the wrong side. You guys think he's a hero fighting for the little man. He's not. He's not Robin Hood. He's the fucking, whatever that guy is, the Prince of Nottingham or what fucking.
We will restore calm and
Sheriff of Nottingham.
Stability to the region and expand prosperity, opportunity, and hope to our nations and for all people of the Middle East, including the Arab and Muslim nations. Very important. We want the Arab and Muslim nations to have peace and have tranquility and have
fucking, what are you talking about? Again, did they give him this shit to write this? He did this? Who did this? Who participated in this fucking nightmare of the liberals and the media have been waiting to jump on this motherfucker. And they're dumbfounded. Like all these people who are pro-Zionist themselves, they can't believe this shit. Like nobody can. They're like, what is going on here? Has he lost it? What happened here? Has he got a fucking brain tumor? So this is where Netanyahu acknowledges he's Trump's handler.
Be the first foreign leader to visit the White House in your second term. This is a testament to your friendship and support for the Jewish state and the Jewish people.
Yeah, it is. He's your puppet.
I've said this before. I'll say it again. You are the greatest friend Israel has ever had in the White House.
Boom. Fuck you applauding for that for? He's going to dump more money. Just think about that, what it means to you. You fucking people who voted for this guy and loved this guy and thought he was your guy. This is what they're saying about him. The greatest friend of Israel. He's not the greatest friend that America's ever had. He's not the greatest American president. He's the greatest president for Israel, not the greatest American president. You can't be both, right? They have conflicting needs. They're two different countries. He's great for Israel. He's not great for you. Woo!
And that's why the people of Israel have such enormous respect for you.
They're all sitting at home with fucking giant hard-ons right now for all that shit you just said.
Your first term, you recognized Jerusalem as Israel's capital. You moved the American embassy there. You recognized Israel's sovereignty over the Golan Heights. You withdrew from the disastrous Iran nuclear deal. I remember we spoke about it. You said, this is the worst deal I've ever seen. I'm elected. I'm walking out of it. That's exactly what you did.
That's exactly what you did. We loved it over there.
And I think it speaks loudly for just common sense, just looking at things and seeing them as they are.
There's just so many Iranian children starving because of your sanctions. It was wonderful.
And of course, you also brokered the groundbreaking Abraham Accords in which Israel made peace with 4 Arab states. We did this in 4 months. Nothing happened for a quarter of a century, but in 4 months, we were able, working together under your leadership, to have 4 historic peace accords.
He's just so happy, kid in a candy shop.
And now in the first days of your second term, you picked up right where you left off. Your leadership helped bring our hostages home, among them American citizens. You freed up munitions.
How many shekels did you get, bro? How many shekels did we have to give you and your family?
That have been withheld from Israel. They had been withheld from Israel.
Take your shekels, Trump.
In the midst of a 7-front war for our existence. And you just freed it. You ended unjust sanctions against law-abiding Israeli citizens. You boldly confronted the scourge of anti-Semitism. You stopped.
Hey, that stuff's not going away now. It's going to get fucking worse. It's just, this is the kind of stuff that drives it, right?
Funding, as you just said, international organizations like UNRWA that support and fund terrorists. And today, you renewed the maximum pressure campaign against Iran. Ladies and gentlemen, all this in just 2 weeks. Can we imagine where we'll be in 4 years?
No, we can't. Fucking.
I can. I know you can, Mr. President. For our part, we in Israel have been pretty busy too. Since the horrendous October 7th attack, we've been fighting our common enemies and changing the face of the Middle East.
How is Hamas American enemy?
On that infamous day.
All right, so this is all this bullshit, right? Bragging about the genocide that they're doing in Palestine. I mean, the stuff that they've whined about that's been done to them, doing that to another group of people. All right, so let's get some of these questions. I'm not going to cover the reaction. This video is just going to be too long, and I mean, it's going to be a whole thing here. But I'll get into the reaction tomorrow. I'm going to take a day off after this one and give some space and time for people to, whatever. Here's this guy right here. He's got one of those things.
Particular. We'll take some questions, please. Yes, ma'am. Go ahead, please. Go ahead. Yeah, go ahead.
Can a normalization deal with Saudi Arabia be achieved without the acknowledgement of a Palestinian state? That question for you too, Mr. Prime Minister. And Mr. President, given what you've said about Gaza, should the U.S. send troops to help secure the security vacuum?
So Saudi Arabia is going to be very helpful, and they have been very helpful. They want peace in the Middle East. It's very simple. We know their leader and their leaders very well. They're wonderful people, and they want peace in the Middle East. As far as Gaza is concerned, we'll do what is necessary. If it's necessary, we'll do that.
We'll send troops. That's going to be necessary. If you're going to take over, you think you're going to take over the Gaza Strip with no troops? Fuck, what are you talking about? So, of course, he's going to send troops. So he's now said that his plan is to send American troops to Gaza and take over that region. And then forcibly ethnic cleanse the country of Palestinian people and put them in some imaginary city that's going to house 1.8 million people that hasn't been built yet and somehow will be built by the time that all this shit goes down, right?
We're going to take over that piece, and we're going to develop it, create thousands and thousands of jobs, and it'll be something that the entire Middle East can be very proud of. But
if he was just going to say, all right, we're going to go in there, we're going to clean up the mess and start rebuilding the Gaza Strip, and we're going to have a piece of it, we're going to be in charge of it, we're going to make sure the security's there, but we're going to keep the Palestinian people there, and then they can come and we can be employees and do the jobs of whatever we built there, right? Infrastructure and whatever, resource harvesting. That would be fucked up. Like him saying we're going to send troops, but that would be so much better than what he's proposing here, right? Like that would be like they would never consider such a thing, to have American troops just all of a sudden go in there, and nobody wants that. Like you want to send American troops? Who's out there that wants this and thinks is a good idea? Like how fucked in the head would you have to be to think this is a good idea? Almost 100% are united against this. Liberals, conservatives, everybody. Soldiers, all the people in America, military don't want to go there and be in a part of a war we have nothing to do with.
But everybody feels that continuing the same process that's gone on forever, over and over again, and then it starts, and then the killing starts, and
because they want that land. That's the problem. They want, they're Zionists. The Zionists are the problem here.
All of the other problems start, and you end up in the same place, and we don't want to see that happen. So by the United States, with its stability and strength, owning it, especially the strength that we're developing and developed over the last fairly short period of time, I would say really since the election, I think we'll be a keeper of something that is very, very strong, very powerful, and very, very good for the area, not just for Israel, for the entire Middle East. Very important. And we'll, again, have thousands of jobs, and there'll be jobs for everyone, not for a specific group of people. But
because they won't be there anymore because you've shipped them out to Arizona and Egypt.
For everybody. Okay, please.
Phoenix and Egypt.
I think peace between Israel and Saudi Arabia is not only feasible.
Okay, fuck you guys. Okay, so I took my cold water bath, went on a walk. I'm cleaning the oven with the automatic cleaner, and the whole house, where the oven heats up, and the whole house stinks. And I got a video where Trump's press secretary is already backing off on some of his claims here because they're fucking ridiculous, right? So I asked, this is not it, right? I asked, how long would it take to build a city somewhere in the Middle East for 1.8 million Palestinian people? Building a city for 1.8 million people is a massive undertaking, regardless of location. Here's a breakdown of what would be significant influence of timeline. This is in the foundational stage and can take several years. It involves, again, it's probably like 10 years, but whatever. Determining land use, infrastructure needs, roads, water, electricity, sewage, transportation systems, and overhaul city layout. Designing residential, commercial, and public buildings. They're saying it can take several years just to do the planning and designing. That's what it means there, right? Things that I said, and I'm not, I know almost nothing about this, just things that I thought of off my head. Environmental impact assessment, evaluating potential environmental impacts and mitigation strategies. Infrastructure development, this is arguably the most time-consuming phase. Building a comprehensive road network, establishing water, electrical grids, sewage systems, and waste disposal facilities, developing reliable public transportation system, bus, metro, etc. Construction of buildings, this involves constructing housing units for population, building offices, retail spaces, and other commercial establishments, constructing schools, hospitals, governmental buildings, and other public facilities, social and economic development, creating jobs, establishing social service, and fostering a sense of community. I wish there was a way for me just to play this. Is there? Political and geopolitical factors. The political and geopolitical situation in the Middle East would significantly impact the feasibility and timeline of such a project. Funding, securing adequate funding for such a massive project would be a major challenge. Availability of skilled labor and construction materials would also influence timeline. The Middle East often faces challenges such as water scarcity and extreme temperature, which would need to be addressed in the city's design and construction. And so, it's completely fucked. It would take 20 years, and, just even to break ground, it would take 4 or 5 years. To deal with all these things. It's not like somebody volunteered this. Trump just came up with this bullshit idea, which he's already backed away from. How much would it cost? The assessment, hundreds of billions, if not trillions of dollars, right? So they're building a city that would be comparable to Phoenix, Arizona, and it would cost maybe $1 trillion. Whatever supplies they need, and then water is always going to be an issue. So, and the people don't want to leave, and you can't make them. So let's go to the press secretary. Then I want to show you Kelly O'Donnell's question again. I want to see the whole exchange there. Everything that Trump says, and then I'll wrap it up with a voiceover. But you see how fucked this is. It's just, you can't say and do things like this as president. And I've always liked Trump doing and saying outrageous shit, but it's just like with Kanye. I was talking about how Kanye posted all these pictures of his naked wife on Twitter. And what I didn't realize was that she stripped down in the Grammys, like on stage when they're doing that walkway where they take the photos. I show you Jaden and Willow Smith being photographed. And she didn't want to do it. She was nervous and uptight. Friends of hers said that she didn't want to do it, and he forced her because, he's a piece of shit, right? And I've liked Kanye over the years, but there are some things that just cross the line. And this thing that Trump just proposed crosses a line. If you can't see that, then, what can I do for you? Nothing, because it's just so obvious what the case is. It's not because I say so. You just can't say shit like this, right? There's people's lives and livelihood. 1.8 billion people are being abused by the Israelis, and they're going to side with them and propose some bullshit thing, and just all of it. Okay, so Trump has backed off on these claims.
Very much. 2 questions. One, the president yesterday used the word permanent for permanently resettle Palestinians. I hear you saying temporarily today. Is that a shift or a specific change that you want to highlight? And my second question is, Yesterday he spoke about the U.S. owning Gaza. Who owns Gaza now, and how would the U.S. acquire ownership?
Well, Gaza is currently run by Iranian-backed terrorists in the Middle East, Hamas, who we all agree, I think everybody in the region agrees, that can no longer stand.
Okay, so, you know, I'm going to get pretty hostile with her at the end of this thing. It's a short clip. But that's just fucking wrong to say that. The Palestinian people, they would be a sovereign state, but Israel wouldn't let it be that, right? Israel did not want a two-state solution. They didn't want Palestinians to have a country. And if they had a country, they would have a military, they would have a government, and this would be a war, not some bullshit thing where they call people who are revolutionaries terrorists, right? Like, all this shit that they try to be, like we're on the side of revolution, and the January 6ers aren't insurgents. You can't play it on both sides, right? So fuck this girl and fuck the whole Trump administration. Like, it's gone south so quickly here. Like, this is just fucking evil.
Just look at the events of October 7th and the events since. And the president, again, is committed to rebuilding the region for all people who want to return to it once it is no longer a demolition site. And it's a place where people can actually live and thrive in harmony, as he said last night. His words, not mine.
Okay, so he's proposing to go to some other countries and build between 1 and 12 different settlements to house 1.7 million people where they can live in harmony, build the infrastructure out in the desert somewhere. And then when they get done rebuilding the Gaza Strip, which may take, who knows, 10 years or whatever it is to clean that place up and rebuild it, they can move back into there. And, you were talking about the cost again here. I mean, what it would cost, I'll check that after we're done with this bimbo, right?
Daniel.
Permanent versus temporarily resettle?
The president has made it clear that they need to be temporarily relocated out of Gaza for the rebuilding of this.
No, he did make that clear. He said that they were going to build cities for these people where they could live forever in suburbs and nice houses, like some magical thing for 1.8 million people. Only someone who's completely fucked to the head, a Joe Biden level kind of intelligence would suggest such a stupid thing, right? But this is where she goes and gets evil.
Effort. Again, it's a demolition site right now. It's not a livable place for any human being. And I think it's actually quite evil to suggest that people should live in such dire conditions.
Okay, so this dime store bimbo, fake Christian Barbie who's not wearing a cross today would say something like that. That's so manipulative. These press secretaries have a hard job, especially cleaning up for their senile presidents, right? Who are really old and really their mental capacity is breaking down. Of course, Biden was worse, but Trump is obviously on his way out. And I understand they have a shitty job. But when you say something like that at the end, that's pure her. That's pure manipulative. It's quite evil to suggest. He said anybody suggesting that the Palestinian people can stay in their country, even under such conditions because they love their home and they don't want to leave it, that's not evil. It's evil to suggest that the Israelis army killing, murdering, slaughtering all these various people, abusing them, 40,000 of them, and then all the stuff that's happened to the rest that live there, people suffering so much because of the Israeli greed and their inability to play by the rules and be just human beings, right? The IDF shit, right? All of it. Netanyahu. Like, that's the evil shit, right? And so, don't say that people who are suggesting that Palestinian people shouldn't be booted out of their country in something that couldn't happen, that wouldn't be able to happen, because it costs too much money, it would take too much time, and nobody's going to do it. I mean, even suggest such a stupid, act is ridiculous. But Trump has already backed down from it being permanent to being something temporary. And, it was confusing what he said. Remember, I got confused because once he said, we got to build them settlements. And then he said, well, people can come here and work and live here. But he said, not them. It wasn't the Palestinian people. It was confusing what he said. Because I don't think he even knew what he was saying, right?
Today?
Thank you. On Gaza, the president has spent basically his entire public career criticizing foreign entanglements, nation building, sending American troops to fight abroad, particularly
Boom. Excellent question.
in the Middle East. This plan seems like it could ultimately involve all of those things. Can you explain this reversal and how building and owning Gaza squares with America First foreign policy?
I would reject the premise of your question that this forces the United States to be entangled in conflicts abroad. The president has not committed to putting boots on the ground in Gaza. He has also said that the United States...
Yeah, okay, but you would have to do that. Come on, fucking fake Christian Barbie. Like this is where it just gets stupid. You know, like, she can't say the guy's an idiot and this can't happen. You know, what she knows and everyone else knows. Like, he's talking out of his ass and she has to deal with it, which sucks. That's what sucks about her job. But, you know, she's just going over the top with it.
The States is not going to pay for the rebuilding of Gaza. His administration is going to work with our partners in the region to reconstruct this region. And let me just take a step back.
Okay, so again, I'm going to ask the AI how much it would cost to rebuild Gaza and how long it would take. We'll get into that after we're done here. But again, we're talking about billions of dollars that it's like saying Mexico's going to pay for the wall.
Because this is an out-of-the-box idea. That's who President Trump is. That's why the American people elected him.
No, they didn't elect him for this shit, Barbie. Like she did.
And his goal is lasting peace in the Middle East for all people in the region. And as I said in my opening remarks, we've had the same people pushing the same solutions to this problem for decades. And it's been made very clear to the president that the United States needs to be involved in this rebuilding effort.
Revolved around.
To ensure stability in the region for all people. But that does not mean boots on the ground in Gaza. It does not.
It totally means boots on the ground. There's no other way to do it.
Not mean American taxpayers will be funding this effort. It means Donald Trump, who is the best deal maker on the planet,
yeah, sure he is. He's great. That's why he went bankrupt 6 times.
Is going to strike a deal with our partners in the region.
He
Boom.
did not rule out American troops in Gaza last night. Are you doing that now?
I am saying that the president has not committed to that just yet. He has not made...
Yeah, because it fucking... He just came off the cuff with this thing. This thing's going to be dead by the end of the week. There's going to be something stupid that Trump said, and people will just let him get away with it because he can't do anything about it. But, you know, this would be... I mean, this is the kind of thing, if Biden had said something like this, they'd be calling for mental health examination and the rest of it. It's completely fucked.
Made that commitment, and you know that.
And on the foreign partners, the Jordanians, the Egyptians, the Saudis have already panned this plan. What foreign partners, if any, have expressed any interest in being part of it?
Well, the president has said he's been socialing this idea for quite some time. He's been...
With who?
Thinking about this. He said in his remarks last night, this was not a decision or an announcement that he takes lightly. And the president has already spoken to the president El-Sisi. In fact, that was his first foreign leader call. He's meeting with the King of Jordan, King Abdullah, next week. He spoke with the King of Bahrain. He spoke with the Crown Prince of...
Well, you know, when I asked that question, how much it would cost, billions, if not trillions, right? And all the environmental studies, all the things you have to do, getting the land. I mean, it's not doable. Relocating 1.8 million people. I mean, it's the city the size of Phoenix, right? And so relocating all those people, I mean, what you need to do that, right? And then to rebuild the city and get other people to pay for it and then bring the people back, it's fucking stupid, right? Like, why would you do that? You know? I mean, Jesus Christ, why would you even do that?
Saudi Arabia, and he has made it very clear, he's been very vocal, that he expects our partners in the region, particularly Egypt and Jordan, to accept Palestinian refugees temporarily so that we...
That's not what he said in the thing, though. Fake Christian Barbie.
We can rebuild their home. I'd like to show you some images of Gaza that were taken.
You know, all the pictures he's seen from every angle?
Fox News aired this. I mean, that is, as they put it, an apocalyptic scene in Gaza.
It was caused by Israeli soldiers and bombs. It had nothing to do with Hamas.
This is an uninhabitable place for human beings.
So, you know, you're going to come up with some bullshit plan and say other people are going to pay for it? You know, that the Israelis aren't on the hook for this at all?
Really think that family...
And if Israel pays for it, we're paying for it.
Can live their dream in a region that looks like this, with no running water, no electricity.
Which Israel cut off early on in the conflict.
And the special envoy to the president, Steve Witkoff, recently traveled to Gaza, as you all know. And he came back with images that he showed the president.
And then the president said, oh my God, let me come up with a plan here that nobody's going to buy. You know, fuck.
The dire situation here. And the
All right. So fake Christian Barbie is taking it on the chin today. Okay. How much money would it take to rebuild Gaza? $40 billion. Would exceed $40 billion. And so they might get some billions from people, countries, corporations, would get claim to, a resort or whatever it is, right? Whatever money it would take. But they would have to put that money into their properties or whatever it might be. People who want to get the natural gas and oil that's offshore, whatever it is, right? Things that they would have to do. That's all a bunch of other environmental studies. But who's the government? They don't have really a government there now. Like you have to pay, if you're going to drill for natural gas and oil, you have to make a deal with the country. Isn't like America can just go claim it, right? Oh, we're just claiming that country. The whole thing's fucked. It's just silly. So let me expand on what I was saying. The UN was pushing this idea of public and private partnerships. That would be like a corporation partnering with the U.S. to get partial ownership of the Grand Canyon or a bridge or a highway. And they would find ways to monetize it. But they would also be responsible for the upkeep and the staffing and all these things, right? And so you have these private institutions partnering with public organizations or public governments, with governments. And so Gaza would need to have a government. Like you can have these people who want business interests. There's lots of people who would want to either use the natural resources or have beachfront property in a place. They have all these tourist destinations right in the Mediterranean Ocean, beautiful ocean, nice climate. And so there could be, a destination there. They could put casinos in, whatever they want to do. So you're going to get people who are going to want to invest in that. And maybe there are people who are Trump knows who have lots of money who said, yeah, we'd like to do that. And Trump would get some sort of kickback, his family, all these things. The Trump corporation could be involved in one way or another, all those things. Any way that he could get bank or whatever. But they have to have a government. There has to be some sort of governmental ownership of the land, right? What is this country called? Palestine now or something? U.S. West or U.S. East? What is it called, right? And so, the whole idea is silly. Lots of people would want a piece of it, right? Trump included. But doesn't mean you can just do that. How long would it take? Rebuilding Gaza after recent conflict would be a long, arduous process. Here's a look at the potential timeline. Initial recovery, 3 to 5 years. Restoring essential services like water, electricity, sanitation. Full reconstruction, including rebuilding homes, infrastructure, and reviving the economy, could take decades, even under the most optimistic scenarios. Funding, political security, access to materials and labor, addressing root causes. It's a clusterfuck. Nobody would want to get involved with that. If they wanted to go get the gas and the oil, all they have to do is build certain levels of, like you put on a military base somewhere. You can build something like that. But to house there's 1.8 million people whose homeland was just destroyed by fucking Israel. And Trump and these people don't want to say it because Israel wants to take the land. And so that's what's happened here. And they're rewarding Israel for it. So this is completely fucked. Well, let's go back to the Kelly O'Donnell question here.
Kelly, go ahead.
You are outlining something that is really quite striking tonight. You are talking about... Thank you, Mr. President, Mr. Prime Minister. You are talking tonight about the United States taking over a sovereign territory. What authority would allow you to do that? Are you talking about a permanent occupation there? Redevelopment? And Mr. Prime Minister, do you see this idea as a way to expand the boundaries of Israel and to have a longer peace, even though the Israeli people know how important that land is to you and your citizens, just as the space is inherited by the Palestinians as well?
I do see a long-term ownership position, and I see it bringing great stability to that part of the Middle East and maybe the entire Middle East. And everybody.
So either people are just letting him be this way. They want him to make a fool of himself. They're letting him run with these ideas because, they have their own AI. They have their own, even if they didn't have AI, they could crunch the numbers. They know how long. He's a developer and a builder. He should know more. All the things that I immediately came to mind of why this thing was be a nightmare. And he's talking about the tunnels and the fucking, bombs and shit. I mean, like, it might take years just to get rid of all the stuff, where you're going to haul off all the, the concrete pillars and all the things that can't be used. Like, everything that's in that city is compromised. And so it's a small area, and they're boxed in. And so they don't have some giant dump site where they could take all the waste and all the old buildings and, all the equipment you have to bring in there, all the cranes and the, the heavy power equipment and all the military equipment. I mean, it's a completely fucked idea. Nobody in their right mind would even suggest such a thing. He isn't serious about this. But even, doing this is just suggesting something that he knows very well you can't do. I mean, it's his whole, moral integrity and all of it is in question here. It's completely fucked, right? So it's like silly. But his handlers and people are just letting him run with this shit, right?
Everybody I've spoken to, this was not a decision made lightly. Everybody I've spoken to loves the idea of the United States.
Okay, list those, not Bob and Tom and Phil and Steve and BD, like, what other people, right?
Owning that piece of land, developing and creating thousands of jobs with something that will be magnificent in a really magnificent area that nobody would know. Nobody can look because all they see is death and destruction and rubble and demolished buildings falling all over. It's just a terrible...
How'd it get that way, Trump? Why are those buildings destroyed? Is it this guy? Is this motherfucker right here?
Terrible sight. I've studied it. I've studied this very closely over a lot of months, and I've seen it from every different angle. And it's a very, very dangerous place to be, and it's only going to get worse. And I think this is an idea that's gotten tremendous, and I'm talking about from the highest level of leadership, gotten tremendous praise. And
so, see, all these countries are now saying, fucking, this is crazy. Right? He's being humiliated nationwide, worldwide. I mean, I don't even know what his supporters think about this, right? I don't, I'm sure we'll get some comments, we'll see. But I mean, this is so fucked.
The United States can help to bring stability and peace in the Middle East. We'll do that. Baby?
I mentioned again tonight our three goals. And the third goal is to make sure that Gaza never poses a threat to Israel again. President Trump is taking it to a much higher level. He sees a different future for that piece of land that has been the focus of so much terrorism, so many attacks against us, so many.
Okay, so because you guys have been bullying the shit out of them, and they don't have a military, and they're not a country.
So many trials and so many tribulations. He has a different idea.
When this is the kind of stuff that is just, they're not acknowledging how evil they are and playing the victim, not just Israel, but Trump and the rest of these people, and perpetrating a complete lie that most people can see through. Americans can. And we're paying for all this shit, right? And we're all tired of it. We're tired of this kind of bullshit. We're tired of the evil doers, the evil empire, lying about what's going on, how you're really, helping the people that you're oppressing as you steal their resources and enslave them. I mean, everyone's tired of this kind of shit, right? I mean, most people are. Most people who are at least awake and alive. And, this is, if the internet has done anything, it's stuff like this. Like, people don't believe this bullshit anymore, right?
And I think it's worth paying attention to this. We're talking about it. He's exploring it with his people, with his staff. I think it's something that could change history. And it's worthwhile really pursuing this avenue.
Yeah, it's got nothing to lose, bro.
Yeah, please go ahead.
Okay, so there's more about this, whatever. Like whatever. We get the idea here. Let me switch over to a voiceover. Okay, so I want to talk about this in a little different way. We've been dealing with the Trump disastrous claims on Gaza. I just had this spiritual gathering. Well, first of all, my wife is dealing with a elderly parent who's entering the death phase, and she had to go to the hospital last night. And she came back, around 10:30 or so. And there was a big owl right towards the beginning of our driveway, like a spruce tree that flew over a car. So we had another owl sighting. We get those big, I think they're great horned owls, one of the bigger species we have around here that I've seen in the trees. Owls and death and, all these things. And the things I had with owls recently. And so there's that. The other thing is that, I was talking about how my spiritual condition was, we had a recent gathering on a Gratefulness meditation with the meditations. And it was the first time I felt like a real gathering, right? Like there was the after effects. And what it does is it transforms a person's spiritual condition. So, when you're talking about psychology, like a master's in counseling, I have a master's in counseling, and if you're evaluating somebody, you're talking about how they present and what are the things that they exhibit, what are the psychological issues you can see, and there's certain assessment measures, tests that you can give to people to generate a picture of a person's internal world, like what's going on in their internal world. And you might ask a person, how are you feeling? You feel angry, you feel depressed, what's going on with you emotionally? You're having lots of thoughts, disturbing thoughts, these kind of things. If you're talking about somebody's psychological state. If somebody asks you what's your psychological state, you would talk about what you're feeling in terms of emotions, the thoughts you're having, and the kind of mood you're in. And that's all to do with psychology. And spiritual condition has to do with how well you're able to feel God's love and what you're feeling, on a deeper level. And depression could be a part of that, something like that. But it's more like restlessness and grossness. So if, as a preceptor, you transmit to a person and you see a visual picture of the person or you feel something, it could be either feeling, seeing, or both. And you would see light. You would see, you would feel light. You would feel the person's condition as light. And if there's something blocking that condition, and you might feel it as heat or anger or something, frustration, depression, whatever. And so that's a person's spiritual condition. And at the end of these spiritual gatherings, the spiritual condition is just pristine. And, after the gathering was done, and this wasn't happening the whole Dodgy years. So Dodgy took over in 2015, and the gatherings went from okay to really pretty much not gatherings at all. And whenever I had these spiritual journeys, either going to India or going to see the master of the system or going and any of these other things, at the end of it, no matter what I went through in the beginning or the middle, at the end I would feel this deep spiritual condition. I just want to stare at the wall. And after this gathering was done, that's how I felt. And then last night I was watching TV, and I just was spaced out. Like I was just, you internalize yourself and you're connected to the divinity within you. And you're just the world just disappears. It's called getting absorbed in your internal condition, your spiritual condition, and the world just disappears. The outside world, the things you're concerned about, the worries, the thoughts, any of these feelings, your physical needs and things, they just take a backdrop. And even 2 days after I was feeling it, and I had a good meditation last night, another good meditation this morning, I was really feeling it. But I knew that this thing with Trump that I was covering, Trump's diabolical lies about the Gaza Strip and his ridiculously imbecilic plan was going to pull me out. That's why I'm a little bit just irritated by the whole thing, because I was in such a refined place and then just had to deal with this stupidity, which I had to do because it's my job, right? Returning to work, this always happens, where you're feeling like this in-depth spiritual condition, and then you have to deal with the grossness of your material life, your job, your life, and these other things, right? And, I had to deal with this thing because I've seen the Trumpers. I mean, they've showed up on my channel, answer, these comments and things. And this idea that Trump's a revolutionary and he's after the big money people and he wants to take down the big money people, the people he's talking about carving up Gaza with is those people, right? It's that group of people. It's that shit. It's that stuff. He's that guy, right? He's one of them. And, this imbecilic notion that Trump would somehow save the country and would do so by restructuring it and making it, a friendly place for poor people. It's not who Trump is. Trump is a billionaire wannabe. He's always been about those kind of people and that kind of money, right? For individuals, not for everybody. Not everyone could be a billionaire. If everyone was a billionaire, a loaf of bread would cost $1 million, right? So it's like that kind of a thing. And so this thing with Israel is particularly bad. Not that America doesn't do the same shit, but Israel is running a game here where they act like a victim that they're being bombed by so-called terrorists who are really people that they control and handle, or either that or they provoke those people. And then they get to grab more land and act like a victim and say they're doing it for security and to be safe. America did that same shit around 9/11, all that stuff, all the wars that happened in the Middle East. It's a way to provoke the other country to do something, or you do it yourself in some sort of a false flag type of situation. It's an old game because the country with the bigger, badder army is never going to get attacked unless they provoke the other side to attack them in some way so they can justify what they're going to do to that country. And it's a bullshit thing. It's evil. And, it's not only deceptive, but it's just wrong. And for Trump to be endorsing that means that he's a part of that cabal. He's not one of you. Because if he's one of you, he'd stand up for the Palestinian people in every way, shape, or form. But Trump's a bully, and he's a piece of shit, and he's stupid, and this thing's moronic. And, it's not going to go anywhere. But it doesn't matter because he's crossed the line here, and he's only 2 weeks into his second term, right? When World War III is coming, it's part of as far as I know, a divine plan. It has to happen. And Trump is, one of the horsemen of the apocalypse, as was Biden, I would say. Maybe not so much Biden now. But bringing this thing in. And when it does come in, you can't excuse your own participation in this thing. Like I said, if you voted for Trump, fine. You've taken a shot, a lottery. Maybe the guy won't be a piece of shit. Maybe he'll be different. We already know because he was a president before, but, it doesn't hurt to go out and vote. It doesn't take much energy and time. I don't begrudge anybody voting. But when you keep on denying reality and you dump it on people like me or anybody on the internet who's trying to tell you, the things that you should obviously just be able to see by yourself, it's not only annoying, it just pulls everything back because in reality, the truth is there for us to see and the end is nigh, right? It's coming just around the corner and you can deny it all you want, but it's there. Only spirituality will save this world. It's Paul Romano, definitely reporting for the Apocalypse. And the Ascension, everyone have a blessed day and be grateful.